Chapter 1283. In the demon-devouring abyss, Tian's expression gradually softened as he calmed down. He had accepted everything that Wuxian had told him. Tian, I didn't want to tell you this, but you forced me to tell you. Please don't be offended. Whether you admit it or not, this emperor will not blame you for our relationship. After all, as an uncle, I didn't do my duty. Tian said in a deep voice. His words were sincere. If he didn't hear it with his own ears, he wouldn't believe that the demonic emperor would say something like that. Thank you for telling me this, Your Majesty. Tian nodded. He couldn't blame Wuxian. After all, Wuxian didn't know anything about this. However, Tian couldn't call Wuxian uncle. It sounded weird, and Wuxian probably wasn't used to it. After your mother left, I sent people to look for you, but they couldn't find you. Wuxian sighed and smiled. I didn't expect that we had met before, but we couldn't recognize each other. The corners of Tian's mouth curled up slightly as he said, Your Excellency, how can I save you? Wuxian was stunned for a moment. Then he pointed at the black chains and said, These chains are engraved with the 9 heavens demon sealing seal. You have the demon embryo, so your blood can break the seal. Once the seal is broken, I will be free. Huh? Tian was stunned. He didn't expect that his blood could be so useful. Tian no longer hesitated. He stomped his feet and stood in midair. Several strands of sword intent gushed out from his body, and several strands of blood aura directly spread on the black iron chain. Buzz! The 9 heavens demon sealing seal on the chains was immersed in the demon blood, and it emitted an ear-piercing sound. Then it released endless black gas and disappeared in the void. It's working! Tian saw the runes of the 9 heavens demon sealing seal falling off bit by bit. He was thrilled. The God-Fiend blood is useful for the 9 heavens devil sealing seal. I wonder if it's useful for other seals or restrictions. Tian thought to himself. A moment later, the demon sealing runes on the black iron chain gradually fell off, and the aura of the seal rapidly weakened. That's enough. Tian smiled and signaled Tian to stop. Tian nodded slightly and retreated several hundred meters away. I'm going to be free. Tian looked up at the sky and shouted. His sturdy body shook violently as he released an endless amount of energy. Bang, bang, bang. Endless sounds of explosions could be heard in the air, and the 12 black iron chains shattered one after another, turning into iron powder and dissipating in the air. Without the demon sealing runes, the iron chain was not much stronger than an ordinary iron chain. How could it bind the netherworld demonic emperor? Ha ha ha! This emperor is finally free. Tian broke free from the shackles and soared into the sky, roaring like a dragon. Tian looked at Tian in the sky and smiled faintly. A person who had been imprisoned for more than 100 years suddenly regained his freedom. No one could understand the joy of such a person. After a long time, Tian finally calmed down. He landed beside Tian and said loudly, Tian, thank you so much. Demon King, I won't help you for free, Tian replied calmly. He had helped Tian not only because of his identity, but also because of Mo Rushi. Don't worry, I'll never go back on my words. Once I'm out of the abyss, I'll remove the saint's seal in that girl's body, Tian said excitedly. Demon King, you don't have to go out. The girl is right here, Tian said with a smile. He then summoned the stone of 3 lives. Rushi, come out. Mo Rushi walked out, with Mo Rushi, followed by the Shredder Demon Monarch. Lord Devil King, is that really you? The cadaver corpse Demon Monarch cried out in excitement upon seeing the person in front of him. Tian was stunned. First of all, he did not expect that Tian would have the stone of 3 lives. Secondly, he did not expect that a little mouse would recognize him. Tian, is this your spirit pet? Tian frowned. Although he sensed a familiar aura from the corpse demon lord, he was not sure. Demon King, I'm the corpse demon lord. Before Tian could say anything, The corpse demon lord laughed, and his body grew bigger. He bowed respectfully to Qi Wu Xiaotian. It was a funny scene. "You're the corpse demon monarch?" Qi Wuxiaoshan was taken aback as he stared at Nietian with a strange expression. "Demon King. He is indeed the corpse demon lord." Nietian nodded slightly. He was slightly embarrassed. It was also thanks to him that the corpse demon monarch had become like this. Qi Wu Xiaotian was stunned for a long time. He sensed carefully and finally confirmed the identity of the corpse demon lord. He could not help but frown. One of the 9 great demon lords had become like this. It was indeed not good. "Corpse demon lord, you can talk later. Let Demon King take a look at Rushi's Saint Brand first," Nietian said. He was very worried about Mo Rushi. It was better to remove the Saint Brand as soon as possible. "Okay." The cadaver demon monarch nodded and chuckled. "Lord Demon Monarch, please help Mistress remove the Saint's Brand first. This subordinate will appear later." After saying that, the corpse demon lord disappeared and returned to the Stone of 3 Lives. Qi Wu Xiaotian nodded and looked at Mo Rushi. He couldn't help but be surprised by her appearance. Nietian signaled Mo Rushi to calm down and not worry. "Her Saint Brand is very strong." Qi Wu Xiaotian sensed the aura of the Saint Brand in Mo Rushi's body and said, "I taught the Saint Brand to the Snow Emperor. I didn't expect him to use it." Qi Wu Xiaotian learned the Saint Brand from ancient books. He thought that he would not have a chance to use it, but he did not expect to use it. Nietian's eyes glittered as he asked, "Your Excellency, can you remove the imprint?" He was worried that Qi Wu Xiaotian had just regained his freedom and had not recovered to his peak strength. It would be troublesome if he could not remove the Saint Brand. "Yes." Qi Wu Xiaotian nodded and said, "Even if I have not recovered my strength, a small Saint Brand is not a problem for me." After saying that, Qi Wu Xiaotian signaled Mo Rushi to sit down cross-legged. Then, he began to release waves of 9 underworld demonic qi. It surged in the air and slowly condensed into a black demonic figure that enveloped Mo Rushi. When the black demonic figure enveloped Mo Rushi, waves of 9 underworld demonic qi suddenly became violent and rushed into Mo Rushi's body. Mo Rushi felt a tearing pain in her body and could not help but scream. Nietian watched from the side and tensed up. He was afraid that something unexpected would happen. Chapter 1284. Nietian's face relaxed a lot when he sensed that the power of the Sage Brand in Mo Rushi's body was being extracted bit by the 9 underworld's demonic qi. Qi Wuxiaoshan's methods were indeed strange. He could actually forcefully extract the Sage Brand. Nietian was now sure that the person who left the Sage Brand in Mo Rushi's body was undoubtedly the Snow Empress. He was also sure that the Snow Empress was involved in his death back then. It was even possible that the Snow Empress was the mastermind behind everything. The Snow Empress. As one of the 9 Supreme Emperors, you look dignified on the surface, but behind the scenes, you do such shady things. It's really despicable. Nietian's heart turned cold, and his eyes were cold. After a long time, Qi Wuxiaoshan suddenly raised his palm and extracted the last trace of the Sage Brand in Mo Rushi's body. The Sage Brand in this lady's body has been removed. Qi Wuxiaoshan let out a long breath of turbid air, and beads of sweat seeped out of his forehead. His face was slightly pale, and it seemed that removing the Sage Brand was a huge burden on him. "Demon King." Nietian took out a few spirit pills and handed them to Qi Wuxiaoshan. The latter took them and swallowed them, and his complexion improved slightly. Qi Wuxiaoshan looked at Mo Rushi and could not help but exclaim, "I really didn't expect that there really is a sage body in this world. The number 1 martial body in history. I wonder how powerful it will be in the future." When he removed the Sage Brand for Mo Rushi just now, he felt a surge of saint power. The surging and vast power was shocking. Sage body? Unfortunately, there's no chance for it to grow. Just as Qi Wuxiaoshan's voice fell, a deep and powerful voice suddenly sounded. It was vast and boundless, and turned into a boundless pressure that covered the sky and covered the earth. The sudden attack of pressure was very strange, as if it came from all directions. It was impossible to dodge, and one could only bear it. Rushi, in an instant, Nietian reacted and activated the Earth Pole dark heavenly armor and the heavenly star protection at the same time, enveloping Mo Rushi. The pressure in the sky was too terrifying, and with Mo Rushi's current strength, she could not bear it at all. Boom! A terrifying pressure descended and landed on the heavenly starry barrier, causing Nietian's figure to tremble and spurt out a mouthful of blood. However, Nietian ignored her and growled. Rushi, quickly enter the 3 lives stone. Mo Rushi, who had just removed the sage brand, immediately reacted. Her figure flashed, and the stone of 3 lives shot out a blood-red light. Her figure instantly disappeared. With a thought from Nietian, the stone of 3 lives disappeared into the primal chaos original coffin. At the same time, a shrill cry suddenly sounded out. Lin Ling was actually unable to endure the pressure, and his knees sank as he knelt on the ground. Although Lin Ling had 9th level Heavenly Emperor strength, his martial body was inferior to Nietian's. Nietian was a person who possessed the sovereign dual meridians. Furthermore, there was also the support of 370 billion star power. The might of his martial body far surpassed ordinary 9th level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. Long Aoyan's brows furrowed, releasing surging ghost chi from all over his body, but he was still unable to withstand the horrifying pressure. His complexion became flushed and bloodshot, both knees slightly bent, as if he was going to bend his knees and fall to the ground in the next instant. Snow Emperor! Nietian immediately reacted. The arrival was none other than precisely one of the 9 emperors, the Snow Emperor. Such a horrifying pressure. Only the Snow Emperor could release it. The Snow Emperor, this person, was modest on the surface, but in reality, he was domineering. He had a rule. Apart from the 9 emperors and 5 peaks, everyone else had to kneel in front of him and speak. The 9 emperors were the Heaven Realm's 9 emperors. The 5 peaks were the Heaven Realm's 5 great Sword Dao peaks. The 9 emperors and 5 peaks represented the Heaven Realm's Divine Realm's strongest combat power. Nietian, long time no see. The next instant, a low and deep voice sounded out once more. A white-clothed figure appeared. Frost and snow actually appeared in the space, sprinkling down gracefully, like an enormous curtain, enveloping a stretch of heaven and earth. At this moment, Long Aoyan finally could not hold on any longer. His knees gave way, and he knelt on the ground, blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. He had suffered a palm strike from Qian Chenyu earlier, and his strength had not yet recovered. It was too difficult for him to resist the Snow Emperor's pressure now. Old Snow Emperor, are you very King powerful? Why should I kneel to talk to you? Long Aoyan felt endless pressure wrap around his body, but his expression was ferocious and furious as he growled in a low voice. Because I am the Snow Emperor, the white-clothed figure in midair said indifferently, his eyes extremely cold, without the slightest fluctuation. Snow your mother's balls. Long Aoyan cursed, his body deformed under the pressure. Long Aoyan, you'd better behave yourself. The Snow Emperor's eyes seemed to flicker, and he spoke coldly. He lifted his hand slightly, and a huge force surged out, rolling towards Long Aoyan. Long Aoyan screamed, his body trembling, and he fell to the ground. Aoyan! Nietian saw this and shouted. His divine sense spread out, and he was relieved to find that Long Aoyan's aura was still there. Don't worry, I don't want to kill him yet. He can perfectly fuse with the 8 desolate ghost bone. He has some research value. The Snow Emperor spoke coldly, his eyes locked on Nietian, and he smiled playfully. Nietian, you really surprised me. You were able to reincarnate. No wonder you are the first in the Heaven Realm. Snow Emperor. Nietian suddenly looked up at the familiar face in midair, but his eyes were filled with rage, and he said in a low voice, It seems that you are the real mastermind behind my death. So what if I am? The Snow Emperor smiled faintly. There was not the slightest fluctuation of Yuan Qi around him, but he gave off a kind of endless, suffocating pressure, very terrifying. He laughed. Nietian, you cannot blame me for what happened back then. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for being too outstanding. Too outstanding? Nietian laughed coldly. He didn't expect the Snow Empress to admit what had happened back then so straightforwardly. Furthermore, she did it so confidently. A person who was too outstanding had to be killed. What kind of logic was that? The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. The Snow Emperor looked cold at Nietian and said lightly, "You should know this. You are too outstanding, and you are in the way of others. Of course, you have to be eliminated." "Who am I in the way of?" Nietian's eyes darkened, and then he smiled. "Who am I in the way of your son, or your disciple?" Shui Wushuang and Qian Lusha were both in the upper regions. One was the Snow Emperor's son, and the other was his disciple. They were very close to the Snow Emperor. The Snow Emperor killed Nietian to pave the way for these two. Is there a need for someone who is about to die to know the truth? The Snow Emperor smiled cold, and there was a strong murderous intent at the corner of his mouth. The Snow Emperor had personally come to the demonic devouring abyss. How could he let Nietian and the rest leave alive? Nietian had to die today. Nietian could not help but frown as he felt the cold, murderous intent from the Snow Emperor, and his eyes flickered intensely. Lin Ling and Long Outyin were completely powerless in front of the Snow Emperor, and Nietian was no match for the Snow Emperor. Chapter 1285. The Snow Emperor's figure stood in midair, terrifying frost and snow surging around him, as if a fiend god had descended. "Nietian, are you scared?" Suddenly, the Snow Emperor laughed coldly, thick contempt flashing across his eyes as he said, "The current you only have 7th level Heavenly Emperor strength. In front of this Emperor, you're just an ant. As long as this Emperor wills it, I can crush you to death at any time." "Is that so?" Right at this time, the Chi Wuxio Ocean, who had not spoken all along, suddenly opened his mouth, terrifying, killing intent flickering in his eyes. The Snow Emperor imprisoned him here for over 100 years. This enmity, this hatred, could not be resolved without death. Emo Jiuyo. The Snow Emperor shot a glance at Chi Wuxio Ocean and actually laughed mockingly as he said, "You were imprisoned by the 9 Heaven Fiend sealing mark for over 100 years. Your strength originally dropped quite a bit. Coupled with that you just removed the Saint mark for that girl, your current combat strength isn't much stronger compared to ordinary 9th level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. Can the current you still fight with this Emperor?" Amen? Hearing the Snow Emperor's words, Nietian's gaze tightened slightly. What the Snow Emperor said was right. If Chi Wuxio Ocean was in his peak condition, he could indeed fight with the Snow Emperor. But the current Chi Wuxio Ocean probably could not even take one move from the Snow Emperor. "Nietian, everything is over. Prepare to die." The Snow Emperor smiled coldly and no longer hesitated. The cold air on his body immediately became even stronger. Extremely terrifying frost snow blades danced in the air. This place was the devil-devouring abyss. It was impossible for others to come here. The Snow Emperor could attack without restraint. "One move, and I'll take your life." The Snow Emperor's figure moved slightly. With a cold laugh, he immediately smacked a palm out. Above the void, a palm print condensed from ice and snow rolled down. Rumble. The void immediately started shaking violently, seemingly unable to withstand the pressure of the palm of ice and snow, and was about to collapse. "Nietian, be careful." When Chi Wuxio Ocean saw this scene, he cried out in shock, his complexion turning deathly pale. Nietian only had 7th level Heavenly Emperor strength. How could he withstand the Snow Emperor's all-out palm? The palm of ice and snow pressed down crazily. The terrifying power roared, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. Nietian's face darkened as he sensed the berserk energy rushing towards him. With a thought, the spirit dragon ring on his finger released a ball of green light. The green light instantly spread out, and a green dragon that was 1,000 meters long appeared. The power of the dragon ring. Right now, Nietian wouldn't be able to block the Snow Emperor's palm even if he used the sovereign dragon vein. Only the power of the dragon ring could allow him to block it. The green dragon appeared. It had a massive body, and every part of it was extremely realistic. This was because this was a real dragon's body and not an illusion. It had been a long time since Nietian had used the spiritual dragon ring. The green dragon had absorbed a lot of energy from the spiritual dragon seal, and its body had grown to 1,000 meters. When the Snow Empress saw the green dragon that suddenly appeared above Nietian's head, she couldn't help but furrow her brow. Evidently, she didn't expect him to have such a heaven-defying technique. Roar! At this moment, the green dragon's body rolled, and with an angry roar, it soared into the sky and collided with the giant ice palm. Boom! The giant ice palm and the green dragon collided with each other, and a boundless force was unleashed, spreading in all directions. A terrifying dragon aura wreaked havoc in the space, causing the void to tremble violently. The green dragon had withstood the Snow Empress' fatal blow, but its body had instantly shrunk by a size. Every time the green dragon's strength was depleted, its body would shrink a little. How is this possible? Ocean was stunned as he watched from the side. His eyes were trembling, and he couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. Nietian was actually able to withstand the Snow Empress' direct attack. It was too strange. The Snow Empress figure froze, and her eyes were fixed on Nietian. She was also surprised, but then she smiled and said, Nietian, it seems like I've underestimated you. The number one person in the heaven realm, even if he hasn't grown up yet, is extremely difficult to deal with. The stronger Nietian's strength was, the stronger the Snow Empress' killing intent was. At this time, he had already shed all pretense of cordiality with Nietian. If Nietian continued to live, he wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Nietian, it seems like you've been reborn, and there are many good things on you. I seem to have sensed the legendary aura of the dragon vein, and the aura is very strong. It seems like that is your greatest trump card. The Snow Empress smiled, and her eyes were trembling, revealing a burning passion. Nietian stood where he was and didn't say anything. The Snow Empress was a person who possessed the snow cloud's sacred body, and her martial body was also fused with the saint's bone. She even cultivated the legendary heaven and earth development skill, which could deduce all things. Her perception was strong, and she was no less than a ninth-stage alchemist. It was not surprising that she could see Nietian's dragon vein. Nietian, the dragon vein is too much of a waste on you. If you let me fuse with it, I will definitely be able to break through to the divine state. The Snow Empress smiled sinisterly, and her eyes became extremely greedy. Divine state. She saw the hope of breaking through to the divine state in Nietian. Her snow cloud sacred body was very scary, and it could fuse with all kinds of powers, and even fuse with the saint's bone perfectly. She would definitely be able to fuse with the dragon vein. As long as she fused with the dragon vein, the Snow Empress was confident that she would step into the divine state. You think you can get the dragon vein? Nietianling laughed. Even if he died, he would not leave the dragon vein to someone like the Snow Empress. Even if the dragon vein was destroyed, Nietian would not hesitate. People like the Snow Empress looked very noble on the surface, but in reality, she was despicable and shameless, a complete hypocrite. How could the Supreme Dragon Vein be left to such a person? As Nietian's voice fell, he directly kept the green dragon back into the dragon ring. The green dragon's power was weakened by the palm, and it was impossible for it to withstand the Snow Empress' next move. Nietian, you are too arrogant. The Snow Empress laughed coldly, and without hesitation, he slammed his palm down again. This time, the force of his palm was even more ferocious, and the space shook violently. The huge palm of ice and snow emitted a terrifying power of ice, and the surrounding space was frozen. Nietian stood on the ground, and he could feel the complete coldness, as if his Yuan meridian was going to be frozen. Blood devours the heavens. At this moment, Nietian could no longer hold back. His body trembled, and the meteor wings appeared. His whole body was burning. and the air was filled with a bloody and violent aura. The surging sword intent wreaked havoc in the air, and the sword aura kept increasing and instantly condensed into a blood-colored sword shadow. At the same time, it fused with the power of the stars, and a 2,000-meter-long sword shadow appeared in the void, whistling and rushing into the sky. This time, Nyetian did not hold back, and he gave it his all. The strongest forbidden move, the four-sword intense, and the Darkstar Ghost Kill were all his strongest trump cards. Nyetian's figure rushed forward, without fear, and only the most determined killing intent. Nyetian, you are too weak. When the Snow Empress saw this, she snickered and said, "You want to fight me with this kind of strength? What a joke." As her cold voice fell, the huge palm of ice and the blood-colored sword shadow finally collided in the next moment. Boom! There was a terrifying explosion in the air, and the cold air filled the air, and the sword intent wreaked havoc. The collision of the two supreme forces almost tore the void apart. However, it only took an instant for the blood-colored sword shadow to be suppressed by the huge palm of ice and snow, and the sword intent shot tens of thousands of meters away, filling the air. Chapter 1286. Nyetian had used his most powerful move to clash with the Snow Empress, but he had suffered a crushing defeat. He was still too weak. He couldn't fight the Snow Empress, who was a demigod. Nyetian, Chi Wuxio Ocean exclaimed in shock when he saw Nyetian being struck down by the Snow Empress. His figure flashed as he flew over and caught Nyetian. Chi Wuxio Ocean landed on the ground and placed Nyetian on the ground. The latter was covered in blood, and he was in a terrible state. Demon Emperor, Nyetian struggled to stand up. His face was a mess of flesh and blood, and he couldn't even be recognized as human anymore. However, his eyes were still sharp. The Snow Empress was too strong. Even Nyetian couldn't fight her when he was at his peak in his previous life, let alone now. Nyetian, Chi Wuxio Ocean exclaimed in surprise when he saw that Nyetian wasn't dead. He was also filled with hatred. It was a pity that his strength hadn't recovered, and he couldn't fight the Snow Empress. Chi Wuxio Ocean, it must be very uncomfortable to see your nephew die, right? The Snow Empress suddenly spoke coldly, with a playful look on her face. Nyetian and Chi Wuxio Ocean were both stunned when they heard the Snow Empress words. They were extremely astonished. They didn't expect the Snow Empress to know about their relationship. Chi Wuxio Ocean, you're really cute and naive. The Snow Empress laughed. She was extremely arrogant as she said, "When you fought Nyetian all those years ago, did you think you were the only one who realized that Nyetian had a god-fiend origin embryo? What do you mean?" Chi Wuxio Ocean was stunned. The Snow Empress laughed coldly and said, "Chi Wuxio Ocean, you used the devilish sky-swallowing seal to force out the god-fiend origin embryo aura from Nyetian's body. You realized that, but did you think I couldn't? Snow Empress, you." Chi Wuxio Ocean suddenly reacted. His heart shuddered, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Nyetian also understood at this moment, and glared at the Snow Empress even more furiously. He wanted nothing more than to tear the Snow Empress into 1,000 pieces and grind her bones into dust. At that time, Chi Wuxio Ocean had sensed that Nyetian had a god-fiend origin embryo, and the Snow Empress had also sensed it. Chi Wuxio Ocean had the devil-devouring, heaven-encompassing seal, and his perception was extremely strong. The Snow Empress had the Snow Cloud's sacred body, and she also cultivated the Great Universe Development Technique, so her perception wasn't any weaker than Chi Wuxio Ocean's. After knowing that Nyetian had the god-fiend origin embryo, how could the Snow Empress not investigate? That was why she knew that Chi Wuxio Ocean was Nyetian's uncle. The god-fiend nascent embryo could only be formed after the god-sealing embryo and the extreme demon embryo fused together. In the entire heaven realm and the 9 underworlds, only Chi Wuxio Ocean's sister, Chi Yunxiu, had the extreme demon embryo. Therefore, Nyetian's identity was self-evident. Damn it! Chi Wuxio Ocean suddenly understood something, and he shouted, "Snow Empress, you knew that I would think of a way to get Nyetian to come to the demonic devouring abyss, didn't you?" "Of course. The Snow Empress laughed coldly and said, "Mo Juyo, don't forget that I told you that the 9 heavens devil sealing seal can only be broken by the god fiend's blood. You wanted to see your nephew, and you wanted to escape. How could you not think of a way to get Nyation to come to the demonic devouring abyss? What a Snow Empress, and a despicable person." Chiwuxia Ocean suddenly understood everything, and he was about to go crazy. The Snow Empress was too despicable. Chiwuxia Ocean knew that in the outside world, the Snow Empress was afraid of some people and couldn't attack Nyation. However, in the demonic devouring abyss, the Snow Empress could attack without any restraint. "Azura, demon lord, he betrayed me." Chiwuxia Ocean shouted crazily, and he seemed to have gone mad. He was extremely guilty in his heart. He was the one who made Nyation come to the demonic devouring abyss, and he was the one who harmed Nyation. Nyation also understood everything at this point, but his reaction was unusually calm. The Snow Empress' plan was very sinister, and her shrewdness was evident. Chiwuxia Ocean was once again used by the Snow Empress. The Azura demon lord had betrayed Chiwuxia Ocean long ago, and everything was the Snow Empress' plan, luring Nyation to demonic devouring city, and if Nyation died at the hands of Qianxinyu, that would be the best. If he entered the demonic devouring abyss, the Snow Empress could personally take action. Everything was within the Snow Empress' plan. Nyation. At this moment, the Snow Empress suddenly looked at Nyation and actually smiled and said, "Don't you want to know why I want to kill you? Let me tell you now. The person you are blocking is not someone else. It is me." "What do you mean?" Nyation was stunned. Was there someone who would fight with the Snow Empress for the upper domain? The Snow Empress was the strongest person in the heaven domain, and logically, she should be the most qualified to enter the upper domain. "Nyation, there are some things in the heaven domain that only the 9 emperors know. I will tell you now." The Snow Empress smiled faintly and said, "The 9 emperors are chosen by the upper domain to rule the heaven domain, but the 9 emperors cannot enter the upper domain. This is the rule, unless you can break through to the godly state. Every 300 years, the heaven domain can choose 3 people to enter the upper domain, and those who are chosen are the top geniuses of the heaven domain. Whether or not you can enter the upper domain, I don't care. As one of the 9 emperors, I am only 1 step away from the godly state. As long as I reach the godly state, I can enter the upper domain. I know you have the God Fiend embryo, so I want to use your God Fiend embryo to advance to the godly state. This is the reason why I want to kill you. Are you satisfied?" After the Snow Empress finished, an extremely cold smile hung on the corner of her mouth, without a trace of guilt. "So it's because of the God Fiend embryo." After listening to the Snow Empress, Nyetion's reaction was very calm. At this moment, he had completely understood what happened in the past, and actually laughed bitterly and said, "You want to get the God Fiend embryo, but you can't do it yourself, so you let Luo, Chenhun, and Luo Zian do it on your behalf. As long as they kill me, Luo Zian can enter the upper domain, am I right?" "Nyetion, you're not too stupid." The Snow Empress smiled faintly and did not deny it. It turned out that all this was a conspiracy between the Snow Empress and Luo Chenhun, all for the legendary godly state. The Snow Empress could directly advance to the godly state with the God Fiend embryo, and Luo Zian also had a chance to enter the upper domain. The Snow Empress originally thought that after Nyetion died, the God Fiend embryo would remain in his body, but he never thought that the God Fiend embryo could be reborn, and that the God Fiend embryo would reincarnate with Nyetion's divine soul. At that time, the Snow Empress did not know much about the God Fiend embryo, and only later did he know that the God Fiend embryo needed 900 years to reincarnate. He thought that he would never see Nyetion again in this life, and never thought that he would be able to meet him again. Nyetion reincarnated after only 100 years, which was really out of the Snow Empress' expectations. "Snow Empress, you took my God Fiend embryo for the godly state, and left a saint's mark on Rushi for the godly state, and now you want my dragon vein for the godly state. Are you willing to do anything for the godly state?" Nie Tianling said coldly, and his eyes flashed intensely. Yes. The Snow Empress nodded and said, the godly state is something that all martial artists dream of. As long as one enters the godly state, he will have an immortal life, as long as heaven and earth, and shine as brightly as the sun and moon. Who doesn't yearn for it? For the godly state, I can do anything. Chapter 12, 87. Nie Tian learned everything from the Snow Empress, and the rage in his heart was unimaginable. The Snow Empress, a person he had once respected, had actually committed such a despicable act in order to ascend to the godly state. Everyone had the right to break through to a higher realm, but they didn't necessarily have to step over the corpses of others. The Snow Empress' maniacal laughter gradually stopped, and she calmed down a lot. She stared coldly at Nie Tian as she said, Nie Tian, I'm telling you all this so that you can understand why you're going to die. I don't want you to die in vain. Since everyone was going to die here today, the Snow Empress wasn't afraid at all. Nie Tian clenched his fists tightly, but there was nothing he could do. He was too weak and couldn't resist the Snow Empress. Unless he could instantly kill the Soul Eater Demon King and transform his martial body into a dragon. Unfortunately, Nie Tian had no idea how to use the dragon energy sealed in the dragon vein. Snow Empress, do you really think you can kill us? At this moment, Chi Wuxiaoshan suddenly let out a cold laugh. The corner of his mouth curled into a strange smile. Oomph. The Snow Empress looked at Chi Wuxiaoshan and laughed coldly. She said, Chi Wuxiaoshan, you might be able to threaten me if you were at your peak. But now, you're nothing more than a tiger without fangs. Do you even pose a threat to me? The reason why the Snow Empress didn't dare to fight Chi Wuxiaoshan head-on was because she was afraid of the latter's devilish, sky-swallowing seal. The demon-swallowing heavenly seal was one of the 10 ultimate seals. Even the Snow Empress would find it difficult to escape and scathe if all its power was unleashed. During the battle between Chi Wuxiaotian and Nie Tian, if he hadn't discovered Nie Tian's identity at the critical moment, the latter would have already died under the demon-devouring heaven seal. Now that Chi Wuxiaoshan couldn't use the devilish, sky-swallowing seal, the Snow Empress was naturally fearless. Snow Empress, are you really that confident? Chi Wuxiaoshan suddenly sneered and released all of his netherworld demonic chi. Waves of black demonic chi filled the air, enveloping a radius of 10,000 meters. The Snow Empress froze when she saw this. She didn't know what Chi Wuxiaoshan was going to do. Bang! 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 In the next moment, Chi Wuxiaoshan's figure suddenly trembled before a few muffled bangs resounded. Countless bloody lines actually shot out from his body, and the air was instantly suffused with an extremely bloody aura. This is... Nie Tian frowned slightly when he saw this scene, and he suddenly understood that Chi Wuxiaoshan was actually activating the Devil Blood Soul Sacrifice formation. Demonic Blood Sacrificial Spirit, the number 1 evil formation in the 9 underworlds. It used demonic blood to open the formation and control thousands of 9 underworlds' demonic spirits. In the battle between Nie Tian and Chi Wuxiaoshan, he had witnessed the terror of the demonic blood sacrificial spirit formation. It had almost destroyed his 9 extreme beast giant spirit true body. The demonic blood sacrifice array. The Snow Empress stood in the sky. When she saw Chi Wuxiaoshan's actions, she couldn't help but laugh coldly. She said, Chi Wuxiaoshan, you are really stupid. A mere demonic blood sacrificial spirit array wants to threaten this emperor? How could this emperor place a measly 9 netherworld devil spirit in my eyes? Chi Wuxiaoshan's strength was far from recovering. If he activated the demonic blood sacrificial spirit array now, its strength would be greatly reduced. Furthermore, Chi Wuxiaoshan might even lose his life because of this. With a cold smile, Chi Wuxiaoshan looked at Nie Tian and said, Of course ordinary demonic spirits won't be a threat to you. However, do you really think you're not afraid of demonic spirits summoned by the blood of a god? Godfiend blood. Nie Tian was stunned for a moment before he reacted. His eyes flashed with immense joy. The stronger the demonic blood, the more powerful the formation would be, and the stronger the demonic spirits that would be summoned would be. Chi Ocean's blood was 9 netherworld devil blood, and he could summon demonic spirits that were 100 meters tall. However, his demonic blood wasn't the strongest. It wasn't even as strong as Chi Wu Yinshou's extreme demon blood. It was far inferior to Nie Tian's god fiend blood. Right now, Chi Ocean wasn't using his 9 netherworld devil blood to activate the demonic blood sacrificial spirit array. Instead, he was using Nie Tian's god fiend blood. The Snow Empress seemed to have understood something, and her eyes trembled. However, in the next moment, Nie Tian had already made his move. Several streaks of sword chi shot out from his body, and several wounds appeared on his body. Fresh blood gushed out like a fountain, and it was extremely dripping. Very good. Chi Ocean chuckled. He waved his hand, and the god fiend blood turned into long, blood-colored snakes that surged into the demonic blood sacrificial spirit array. Boom, boom, boom. When the god fiend blood entered the array, countless thick black pillars suddenly rose from the entire array. They were like giant snakes that shot into the sky. The demonic blood sacrificial spirit array has been activated. Chi Ocean's eyes trembled when he saw this. He was very excited. He also wanted to see for himself how terrifying the fiend god blood produced by the fiend god nascent embryo of the legends, the ancient taboo, was. Nie Tian stood where he was, and his face was as pale as a sheet. He prayed in his heart that the god fiend blood that was summoned by the god fiend blood could resist the Snow Empress. The god fiend blood could easily destroy the 9 heavens devil sealing mark. The power contained within it should be very strong. Sir. Lin Ling appeared beside Nie Tian at this moment. He was carrying Long Out Yin, who was still unconscious. When Nie Tian and the Snow Empress were fighting, Lin Ling had temporarily hidden far away with Long Out Yin, and he didn't hear the conversation that had just occurred. Lin Ling, bring Out Yin into the 3-life stone. Nie Tian commanded hurriedly as the 3-life stone appeared with a thought. Lin Ling acknowledged his order and directly brought Long Out Yin into the 3-life stone. Nie Tian kept the 3-life stone, and his expression relaxed a little. Chi Ocean, you're too naive to think that you can use the demonic blood sacrificial spirit array to resist us. At this moment, the Snow Empress' furious voice sounded again. She seemed to have gone crazy. If he had known that Chi Ocean would use the god fiend blood to activate the array, he wouldn't have given the latter any chance. Is that so? Chi Ocean laughed coldly. His figure stood under the array, and he suddenly raised his palm. A huge ball of black fog appeared, and a violent figure appeared. It was actually 300 meters tall. The violent figure was completely black, and it looked like a huge black leopard. However, there was a pair of wings on its back. Netherworld demonic spirit. When he saw the violent figure appear, Nie Tian's eyes trembled, and he was extremely shocked. The netherworld demonic spirit was only 300 meters tall, but it was terrifying enough. When Chi Ocean used the netherworld demonic blood to activate the array, the netherworld demonic spirit that he summoned was only 100 meters tall. The godfiend blood was indeed extraordinary, and it was far more powerful than the netherworld demonic blood. Roar! The netherworld demonic spirit appeared, and with a low roar, it actually swallowed a long blood-colored snake. It was formed by Nie Tian's godfiend blood. At this moment, Nie Tian suddenly felt a figure appear in his divine sense. It was that netherworld demonic spirit. The netherworld demonic spirit swallowed Nie Tian's blood and temporarily obeyed him. Very good. Nie Tian understood, and with a thought, he directly controlled the netherworld demonic spirit. Chapter 1288. Rumble. The giant ice all rumbled down from the sky, and its target was not Nie Tian, but Chi Ocean. The Snow Empress knew that the person maintaining the demonic blood sacrificial spirit formation was Chi Ocean, so as long as the latter was killed, the formation would naturally be broken. Chiwuxia Ocean's current strength was too weak, and it was impossible for him to block the Snow Empress' all-out attack. Don't even think about it. At the critical moment, Niet Tion bellowed, and the 9 underworld demonic spirit let out a weird cry. Its figure was like a bolt of black lightning, and it directly charged over, its violent aura causing the void to tremble. Bang! The 9 underworld demonic spirit's body was not big, but its speed was extremely fast, and it collided head-on with the giant ice owl, as if it had bombarded a glacier. A violent, muffled sound resonated out, and that giant ice owl was actually smashed into pieces. What terrifying strength! Seeing this scene, Niet Tion's gaze involuntarily trembled. He also did not expect that the 9 underworld demonic spirit strength was actually so strong. The Snow Empress all-out attack was something that even peak Heavenly Emperor powerhouses could only receive with their full strength. But the 9 underworld demonic spirit was actually so terrifying, and it was completely unafraid of the Snow Empress. This 9 underworld demonic spirit strength was virtually not beneath peak Heavenly Emperor martial artists. If I can learn the demonic blood sacrificial spirit formation and summon dozens or even hundreds of 9 underworld demonic spirits, wouldn't I be invincible? Niet Tion secretly cried out in his heart, and his eyes became incomparably fervent. Thinking back to the time when Chiwuxia Ocean operated the demonic blood sacrificial spirit formation at full strength, he could even summon hundreds or thousands of 9 underworld demonic spirits at the same time, but their sizes were much smaller, only as large as 100 meters, and their strength was also very weak. Even so, those thousands of 9 underworld demonic spirits almost tore Niet Tion's 9 extremities giant spirit true body to pieces. Niet Tion. Right at this moment, Chiwuxia Ocean raised his palm again and cried out in surprise. Following that, another cloud of black fog rose, and a second 9 underworld demonic spirit appeared, and its body was actually even larger than the first one. After that 9 underworld demonic spirit appeared. It opened its mouth wide and swallowed the blood-colored snake formed from the fiend god blood. Very good. Niet Tion chuckled. He could control the second 9 demonic spirit freely. Kill! Niet Tion didn't hesitate at all. He growled, and the 2 netherworld demonic spirits transformed into 2 streaks of black light in the sky as they charged towards the Snow Empress. The Snow Empress was slightly stunned. She didn't expect Niet Tion to initiate an attack. However, he did not dare to be careless. His body released a frightening power of ice, and a huge wall of ice appeared in front of him. It was like a glacier that stretched across the void. The body of the 9 netherworld demon spirit was only 300 meters long, which was not much different from an ordinary rank 6 or 7 spirit beast. However, its berserk power was much stronger than an ordinary rank 9 spirit beast, and only the strongest rank 9 spirit beast could compare to it. Bang! Bang! 2 loud, muffled sounds rang out as the 2 9 netherworld demonic spirits slammed into the ice wall, but they were unable to break through the ice wall's defense. The Snow Empress was one of the 9 emperors, and she had yet to reveal her true abilities. If she couldn't even resist 2 9 netherworld demonic spirits, she would be too weak. Little bastard, die for me. The Snow Empress smiled coldly when the 2 9 netherworld demonic spirits slammed into the ice wall. She suddenly punched out, and a golden fish shadow appeared. In the blink of an eye, it landed heavily on one of the 9 netherworld demonic spirits. Bang! A loud muffled sound rang out, and blood and flesh splattered everywhere in the void. The 9 netherworld demonic spirit was smashed into pieces by the Snow Empress punch. Niet Tion's eyes darkened when he saw this extremely tragic scene. He immediately thought of something and exclaimed, "Right hand of God." The Snow Empress punch was much more powerful than before. The 9 netherworld demonic spirits' tough bodies were directly smashed into meat paste. The reason why the punch was so powerful was because the Snow Empress had used his right hand, the right hand of God. The Snow Empress was called a demigod because of his right hand. The Snow Empress' right hand was perfectly fused with the saint's bone. Its strength was unimaginably terrifying. It was rumored that if the Snow Empress used the full force of his right hand, even a peak heavenly emperor would not be able to resist it. They would either die or be severely injured. Seeing the Snow Empress smash a 9 netherworld demonic spirit, Nietion knew that the rumors were true. The Snow Empress' right hand of God was indeed extremely terrifying. The 9 netherworld demonic spirits were so powerful, but they could not withstand a punch from the Snow Empress. The situation was terrible. Nietion, Chiwuxia Ocean, do the two of you really think that a few 9 netherworld demonic spirits can stop me? The Snow Empress smiled coldly. Her figure moved, and a majestic aura pressed down. She punched out again, and the golden fish shadow smashed towards another 9 netherworld demonic spirit. Bang! The 9 netherworld demonic spirit did not even have time to scream, and it directly turned into a ball of blood light and dissipated. The 9 netherworld demonic spirits were not illusory. They were summoned by the demonic blood sacrificial formation, and they had real bodies of flesh and blood. Nietion couldn't figure out where on earth these strange creatures had come from. Nietion, Chiwuxia Ocean, you should be satisfied that you can die under my right hand of God. The Snow Empress figure surged over, and her surging aura pressed down crazily. Nietion actually felt like he was suffocating. Nietion. At this moment, Chiwuxia Ocean roared from the ground. He raised his hands, and 2 balls of black fog appeared. Another 2 9 netherworld demonic spirits appeared, and they were even more terrifying than the previous 2. After the 2 demonic spirits appeared, they swallowed the godfiend blood and were controlled by Nietion. Nietion furrowed his brow, and he was extremely nervous. He knew that these were the last 2 9 netherworld demonic spirits. His godfiend blood was almost used up, and Chiwuxia Ocean strength was also almost depleted. It was impossible for him to summon more 9 netherworld demonic spirits. Fight! Nietion made up his mind, and 2 streaks of blood-red light shot out from his bloodied body, and they surged towards the 2 9 netherworld demonic spirits. He guessed that the 9 netherworld demonic spirits would become stronger if they swallowed more godfiend blood. Roar! Roar! The 2 9 netherworld demonic spirits swallowed the godfiend blood again, and they became even more berserk. They roared into the sky at the same time, and their pitch-black eyes flickered with chilly blood-red light. Nietion, I want to see how much more blood you can shed. The Snow Empress smiled cold, and her figure charged down. Kill! Nietion did not care about her at all. His eyes suddenly darkened, and the 2 9 netherworld demonic spirits rose against the momentum and charged towards the Snow Empress. Their sharp claws drew streaks of cold light in the void, and it seemed like cracks appeared in the void. Die, you 2 beasts! The Snow Empress smiled cold and punched out. 2 fist shadows appeared at the same time, and they smashed towards the 2 9 netherworld demonic spirits. Bang! Bang! In the void, 2 muffled sounds could be heard, and then there was a bloody scene in the sky. The 2 9 netherworld demonic spirits were instantly torn apart, and they died on the spot. The right hand of God was too strong, and even the 9 netherworld demonic spirits that had swallowed the godfiend blood couldn't withstand a single blow from the right hand of God. Nietion, it's your turn. After the Snow Empress killed the 2 9 netherworld demonic spirits, her eyes trembled, and she stared at Nietion with murderous intent. Nietion had the godfiend origin embryo, and he also had the dragon vein in his body. These things almost made the Snow Empress crazy. Chapter 1289. The demonic spirit of the 9 underworlds was instantly killed by the Snow Empress god's right hand. The Snow Empress expression was extremely cold. She stared at Nietion and said, Nietion, if I can kill you once, I can kill you a second time. This emperor wants to see if you can reincarnate again this time. The Snow Empress took a step forward after she finished speaking. Her aura was like a raging wave, and an extremely violent pressure surged towards Hu Yuhao. Nietion's eyebrows sank as the boundless aura pressed over. He felt an excruciating pain coursing through his entire body. It was as if his body was about to be torn apart. The Snow Empress aura was too strong. Nietion was severely injured, and it was difficult for him to withstand such a terrifying pressure. Nietion felt a huge force colliding in his body. It was as if a wild beast was roaring in his body, and it was about to tear him into pieces. Instantly, Nietion's eyes became blurry, and he was about to faint. Nietion, accept your death obediently. The Snow Empress laughed maniacally. Her entire body was filled with an icy chill, and her aura was extremely frightening. She laughed sinisterly and said, "As long as you die, your god-fiend origin embryo, your dragon vein, and that girl's sage body will all belong to me." The god-fiend origin embryo, dragon vein, and sage body. The Snow Empress could ascend to the godly state by obtaining any one of these three items. The Snow Empress' face became distorted. She took one step at a time, and the air around her trembled. It was as if she was ringing a death knell. "Snow Empress, you want to obtain the dragon vein? Dream on." Nietion's divine sense was still a little conscious. He roared furiously, and his eyes became cold and vicious. A destructive force was released from his body. "Nietion, what are you trying to do?" The Snow Empress suddenly sensed something and exclaimed. Her expression changed. Nietion wanted to destroy his own dragon vein. If he was going to die, Nietion would rather destroy the dragon vein than let it fall into the Snow Empress' hands. Nietion, prepare to leave. At the critical moment, a voice suddenly sounded in Nietion's mind. It was Chi Wuxioshin. Nietion was taken aback, and the destructive power within his body suddenly stopped. "Snow Empress, it's impossible for you to kill him in front of me." Chi Wuxioshin suddenly let out a strange laugh as he glared at the Snow Empress with cold and resentful eyes. Boom! In the next instant, Chi Wuxioshin suddenly raised his hands, and a strange hand seal appeared in his hands. The demonic blood sacrificial spirit formation sensed this, and a boundless black mist appeared, coiling in the air like a black snake. "This is..." Nietion frowned and suddenly noticed something. He was so excited that he couldn't finish his sentence. He sensed an abnormally powerful space-time aura from the black fog, almost no weaker than a rank 9 space-time scroll. Chi Wuxioshin had actually used the demonic blood sacrificial spirit formation to form a small-scale space-time spiritual formation. Nietion seemed to understand something in that instant. Chi Wuxioshin didn't use the demonic blood sacrificial spirit formation to use the demonic spirits of the 9 netherworlds to resist the Snow Empress, but for this scene in front of him. Since the demonic blood sacrificial spirit formation could summon the demonic spirits of the 9 netherworlds from an alternate space-time, it naturally contained the aura of space-time. Chi Wuxioshin had obviously done all of this in advance, and he wanted to provide an opportunity for Nietion to escape. "Nietion, get in quickly!" Chi Wuxioshin shouted and reminded Nietion. Nietion reacted, and meteor wings appeared behind his back. His figure flashed, and he directly entered the black fog. Damn it! The Snow Empress suddenly realized that something was amiss when she saw this. She punched out and wanted to destroy the black fog. The black fog was a space-time spiritual formation formed from the demonic energy of the 9 netherworlds. Its defensive capabilities were very weak, and it wasn't even comparable to an ordinary rank 7 or 8 spiritual formation. It couldn't withstand the Snow Empress Divine right hand. The black fog was definitely going to be destroyed by this punch. "Snow Empress, even if I die, I must let Nietion leave." Chi Wuxioshin suddenly shouted at this critical moment, and a cold smile appeared on his face. He suddenly charged forward, and boundless demonic energy of the 9 netherworlds surged from his body. Instantly, a huge 9 netherworlds demon body was formed. It was a gigantic black snake that was thousands of meters long. Demon Emperor. Nietion immediately understood what was going on when he saw this, and he screamed in shock. Nietion instantly knew that Chi Wuxioshin wanted to use his 9 Netherworld's demon body as a human shield to block a fatal blow for him. Nietion, I'm the one who brought you here, so I must let you leave alive. Chi Wuxioshin's voice rang out in the void, and he seemed extremely tragic. At the last moment, he was using his life to create an opportunity for Nietion to escape. No! Nietion shouted. He wanted to charge out, but he realized that the black fog around him was surging wildly. Balls of 9 Netherworld's power wrapped around him, and he couldn't escape at all. It was evident that Chi Wuxioshin had done everything he could. He had to let Nietion walk out of the demonic devouring abyss alive. At this moment, Nietion finally understood that Chi Wuxioshin was already prepared to sacrifice himself when he used the demonic blood sacrificial spirit formation. Nietion, you must find your mother. Help me tell her that I'm sorry for what happened back then. Chi Wuxioshin's voice suddenly became calm, and he turned to look at Nietion with a gentle smile on his face. At this moment, Chi Wuxioshin didn't reveal fear in his eyes, but satisfaction. It was a kind of release from his soul. He was Nietion's uncle, and this was all he could do for Nietion. Chi Wuxioshin, you're courting death. The Snow Empress roared furiously, and she seemed to have gone crazy. If she let Nietion leave alive today, he would definitely be a threat to her in the future. Get lost! The Snow Empress roared as she punched out. A huge fist shadow surged out, and it was like a huge mountain as it struck towards Chi Wuxioshin's 9 Netherworld's demon body. Boom! A huge explosion sounded, and the huge fist shadow landed on the 9 Netherworld's demon body. The demon body shook violently and started to crack inch by inch and instantly crumbled. If Chi Wuxioshin was at his peak, his 9 Netherworld's demon body would definitely be able to block the attack of the god's right hand. It was a pity that he was already at the end of his rope and couldn't possibly block the fatal blow. Nietion, leave. Chi Wuxioshin looked at Nietion plainly, and his eyes were gentle as he spoke calmly. Boom! At this moment, the spiritual formation that was engulfed by the black fog suddenly trembled and directly turned into a ball of light before disappearing. Uncle! Nietion shouted at the last moment, but it was a pity that it was too late. His figure had already disappeared. Uncle! Chi Wuxioshin was stunned. When he heard that word clearly, a gratified smile appeared on his face. He felt that everything he had done was worth it after hearing those 2 words from Nietion's mouth. Boom! In the next moment, a dull sound could be heard, and Chi Wuxioshin's body sank into the abyss. The entire demonic devouring abyss was shaking nonstop. The Snow Empress punch directly destroyed Chi Wuxioshin's 9 Netherworld's demon body and severely injured him at the same time. However, it was all too late. Nietion had already left. The Snow Empress stared at the empty void, and after a long silence, she roared furiously. Chi Wuxioshin! Chi Wuxioshin had been plotted against by him many times, but he had tricked the Snow Empress this time. Chapter 1290. Twilight God Domain within a dense forest. The early morning sun shone down at an angle, reflecting on the mottled leaves, revealing the exuberant vitality. At this moment, 2 figures walked over, one old and one young. The old man looked to be in his 60s or 70s. Although he was a little old, he was very robust. The child looked to be about 5 or 6 years old. His black, gem-like eyes flickered with intelligence. Grandpa, look, there's someone on the tree. Suddenly, the child seemed to have discovered something. He pointed at a giant tree that was at least 100 meters tall and exclaimed in surprise. Is that so? The old man smiled and raised his head. The top of the tree seemed to have been struck by lightning, and there were some burn marks. On one of the tree branches, there was a bloody figure hanging. There really is someone. The old man was taken aback and frowned slightly. Then, he walked forward as if he didn't see anything. Grandpa, that person is injured. We have to save him. The child was unwilling to leave and said to the old man. The old man frowned again and again, but he finally stopped and nodded slightly. All right. The child smiled happily. He then took a step forward and arrived in front of the giant tree. He punched out and landed a heavy blow on the giant tree. Bang! The small fist landed on the huge tree, and the huge tree actually shook violently. The figure on the tree fell down. The child stretched out his hand and caught it firmly. If someone were to witness this scene, they would surely be extremely shocked. It was really strange that a 5- or 6-year-old child could have such godly strength. The child placed the badly mutilated figure on the ground and looked at it strangely. "Grandpa, why is this person's hair white?" A young man with white hair. This person must have experienced things that ordinary people can't imagine. The old man shook his head and thought to himself, "I wonder if it's a blessing or a curse for us to save this person." The old man looked at the figure on the ground and seemed to have detected something. His expression immediately became incomparably strange as he muttered, "This person looks just over 20, but his strength actually reached 7th level Heavenly Emperor. This martial Dao talent is truly too freakish." "Grandpa, is he okay?" The child's bright eyes flickered as he asked worriedly. The old man nodded slightly and said coolly, "Relax, he's fine. He just expended too much essence energy and blood energy, and is temporarily unconscious." "Uncle!" Right at this time, the person on the ground suddenly cried out and abruptly woke up, sitting up. This person who was saved was none other than precisely Nietian. Nietian woke up from unconsciousness, his entire body drenched in cold sweat, his eyes trembling violently. The last scene of leaving the demonic, devouring abyss appeared in his mind and lingered. "Big brother, are you all right?" The child asked worriedly after seeing Nietian's shocked expression. Nietan, however, didn't react for a long time, as if he hadn't heard anything. The old man tugged at the child, signaling him not to say anything. After a long time, Nietian finally calmed down, but his face was incomparably grim. In the devil-devouring abyss, Qi Wuxiaotian had risked his life in order to let him leave. He had even used the 9 underworld demon body to block a fatal blow for him. Snow Empress. Nietian stood up slowly. His eyes were filled with terrifying anger, and he could not calm down for a long time. Everything was caused by the Snow Empress. He had killed him once in his previous life, and he would kill him again in this life. If not for Qi Wuxiaotian, Nietian would probably have died in the demonic devouring abyss. "Demon Emperor, are you still alive?" Nietan, his eyes flickered as he thought to himself. He saw with his own eyes that Qi Wuxiaotian's body was shattered by the Snow Emperor's fist. Even if he did not die, he would definitely be seriously injured. Given the Snow Emperor's personality, would she let Qi Wuxiaotian go? Nietian did not dare to think about it anymore. No matter what, he still held on to a glimmer of hope that Qi Wuxiaotian was still alive. "Old man, what is this place?" After a while, Nietian had completely calmed down. He consumed a few spirit pills, and his complexion was much better. He looked at the old man in front of him and asked, but when his divine sense sensed the old man's aura, his eyes could not help but tremble. The old man in front of him looked ordinary, but his aura was very strange. Although it was restrained to perfection, it was still hard to conceal his might. 4th level Heavenly Emperor. Nietian's divine sense moved, sweeping over the old man. Sensing the other party's strength, he could not help crying out in surprise in his heart. "This place is Daynite, Divine Realm's World's Edge City." The old man gave a faint laugh. Clearly, he thought that Nietian did not discover anything. World's Edge City. Hearing these 4 words, Nietian's brows could not help sinking. He remembered that the rumored Horizon Purgatory was in World's Edge City. Horizon Purgatory was precisely the place that imprisoned Han, Fei, and Zhang Jianqing. It seemed like the space-time spirit array that Qi Wuxiaotian condensed sent Nietian to World's Edge City. "May I ask, old man, how to address you?" Nietian recovered quite a bit and asked with a smile. Since he already came to World's Edge City, he naturally had to make a trip to Horizon Purgatory. "This old man's surname is Peng. This is my grandson, Peng Xiongfei." The old man nodded slightly, like an ordinary person. "I'm Nietan." Yet Tian smiled faintly. But he knew in his heart that the old man in front of him was definitely not simple. Hearing Nye Tian report his name, Elder Peng was slightly stunned and gave Nye Tian a very strange glance. Young Master Nye, since you're already awake, then we'll take our leave. Elder Peng laughed, bowed slightly, and prepared to leave. Clearly, he was unwilling to have too much entanglement with Nye Tian. Many thanks for saving me. Nye Tian nodded with a smile and said sincerely. Even though he could wake up naturally, even if the Peng grandfather and grandson did not save him, it would be a little late in the end. So a word of thanks was still necessary. Farewell, Elder Peng responded and immediately brought Peng Xiongfei away. Nye Tian saw that the other party left resolutely and could not say anything either. Old Peng, why are you leaving in such a hurry? At this moment, a cold laughter suddenly rang out. Then, a dozen black figures appeared in the forest and directly surrounded the Peng grandfather and grandson. People from the Lung clan. Elder Peng looked at the people who suddenly appeared in front of him and could not help but exclaim, Old Peng, our clan's young master has something to discuss with you. Please come with me. The leader was a gloomy middle-aged man. His face was extremely gloomy. He stared coldly at Peng Xiongfei and said with a face full of ridicule, Lung Liang, this old man has nothing to do with the Lung clan anymore. Please let us leave. Elder Peng subconsciously protected Peng Xiongfei behind him and said in a deep voice, Nothing to do with him anymore. The cultivator named Lung Liang chuckled and then said with a strange laugh, Old Peng, you've been the teacher of my clan's young master for 5 years. Isn't it a little inappropriate to leave just like that? Lung Liang laughed sinisterly, but his eyes were always on Peng Xiongfei, as if he was afraid that the latter would run away. Nye Tian saw this scene and could not help but stare at Peng Xiongfei. Chapter 1291. The moment Nye Tian looked at Peng Xiongfei, he immediately noticed that the latter's right arm was the legendary Qilin arm. The Qilin arm, dragon arm, octagonal ghost bone, and silver wolf arm were known as the 4 great mysterious arms. However, rumor had it that the Qilin arm was the strongest of the 4 great mysterious arms and had the greatest potential. If it was fully developed, its ultimate power would be unimaginable. Nye Tian had seen the dragon arm, octagonal ghost bone, and silver wolf arm before. Now that he saw the Qilin arm, he had seen all 4 of the 4 great mysterious arms. The dragon arm was with Xiao Shan, the octagonal ghost bone was with Long Outyin, and the silver wolf arm was with Nye Tian. He obtained the silver wolf arm after killing Shi Wushang, but he had never used it. Peng Xiongfei was only 5 years old, but his punch could shake a 100-meter-tall tree. It was the power of the Qilin arm. The Qilin arm hasn't been unsealed yet. It seems that someone is coveting his Qilin arm. Nye Tian looked at Peng Xiongfei and smiled. He guessed. The Qilin arm was similar to the dragon arm. To unleash its true power, the Qilin seal must be unsealed. There were 9 azure dragon seals in the dragon arm, and 12 Qilin seals in the Qilin arm. It was rumored that the Qilin seal was stronger than the azure dragon seal, so 12 Qilin seals was naturally more terrifying than 9 azure dragon seals. It was obvious that these black-clothed men were here for the dragon arm saber. Listening to the conversation between Elder Peng and Lung Liang, it seemed that Elder Peng was the teacher of the Lung family's young master. Lung Liang, since you know that I am Lung Shuang's disciple, why are you still stopping me? Elder Peng said in a deep voice, but his eyes were flickering. Peng Shi, my young master said that as long as Peng Xiongfei leaves the Qilin arm, you and your grandson can leave. Otherwise, I can only invite you back to the Lung family. Lung Liang smiled, and his eyes were filled with coldness. Bastard! Elder Peng roared and said, I have been Lung Shuang's teacher for 5 years. This ingrate actually wants to snatch my grandson's Qilin arm. Elder Peng used to be a guard of the Lung clan. Later, he became the teacher of the Lung clan's young master, Lung Shuang. A few days ago, Lung Shuang discovered that Peng Xiongfei possessed the legendary Qilin arm, so she wanted to take it for herself. Elder Peng left with Peng Xiongfei as soon as he noticed it. They met Nye Tian here which delayed them for a while, but the Lung family still caught up with them. Peng Shi, it seems like you're refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Lung Liang smiled coldly and roared, "Brothers, attack. Kill Peng Shi and leave that kid alive." Yes. The dozen or so warriors behind Lung Liang answered in unison. Their auras were very strong. These martial artists were basically all 4th level Heavenly Emperor strength, the same as Elder Peng, while that Lung Liang was 6th level Heavenly Emperor strength, still considered pretty good. 4th level Heavenly Emperor and 5th level Heavenly Emperor were a watershed. Hence, 4th level Heavenly Emperor martial artists were very many. Grandpa, Peng Xiongfei was frightened by the scene in front of him. His small hands grabbed Elder Peng's clothes and hid behind him. "Bastards, I will fight it out with you." Elder Peng roared angrily, the aura in his entire body released frenziedly. The figure of an enormous male lion appeared behind him. "Old thing, you're courting death here." When the Long family's martial artists saw the situation, not only were they not afraid, they laughed wildly in ridicule instead. Following that, several people stepped forward and attacked one after another. Several violent forces rolled over toward Elder Peng. Elder Peng only had 4th level Heavenly Emperor strength. It was impossible to resist the joint attacks of so many same rank martial artists. If he was hit, he would be seriously injured even if he did not die. Rumble. Right at this critical moment, a vast and mighty sword intent suddenly appeared in the void, the speed swift to the extreme, descending with a loud bang. Bang, bang, bang. The next instant, several muffled sounds echoed out. The 3 people who rushed up first directly flew out backward, smashing heavily onto the enormous tree behind them. The 100-meter-tall tree was actually directly smashed in half. After those few people landed on the ground, their entire bodies were badly mutilated and actually could not get up anymore. A figure landed and stood beside Elder Peng. "Who are you?" Lung Liang looked at the silver-haired youth in front of him with a look of surprise, his expression incomparably horrified. He had already detected the other party's existence previously. It was just that every time, it was just a 20-plus-year-old martial artist. What strength could he have? However, what he did not expect was that Nie Tian's strength was actually so formidable. "The person who killed you." Nie Tianling opened his mouth coldly, the killing intent on his face awe-inspiring, making people tremble in fear. He was already clear about the grudge between Elder Peng and the Lung family. He hated this kind of person who repaid kindness with ingratitude the most. For a Qilin arm, he actually wanted to kill even his teacher. The Lung family's young master was really, as Elder Peng said, worse than pigs and dogs. "Stinking brat, do you know who I am?" Lung Liang detected the killing intent all over Nie Tian's body. Even his voice had a slight tremor as he said, "Our Lung family is one of the 4 great families of World's Edge transformation. Offending the Lung family doesn't have any benefits for you. I just like to offend. What do you do to me?" Nie Tianling sneered. Suddenly, he took a step forward and released all of his sword momentum. The soaring sword intent condensed into a sword shadow, and his whole body seemed to become a sharp sword, a killing sword. "You?" Lung Liang screamed. His pupils shrank violently, but he had no chance to say the following words. The sword shadow fell straight down and drowned him directly, leaving no bones behind. "This." The other martial artists of the Lung family gasped in shock seeing this scene. Lung Liang was the strongest among them, but he was directly killed by Nie Tian. How could they be a match for him? All of a sudden, there was only one word in everyone's mind: run. Unfortunately, it was too late. Nie Tian's body trembled, and countless sword shadows shot out. More than a dozen martial artists of the Lung family were instantly killed. All of them died with their bodies exploding, leaving no bones behind. Elder Peng and Peng Xiongfei were completely shocked by the bloody scene in front of them. Elder Peng did not expect that Nie Tian would make a move, let alone that it would end the battle so simply. He knew that Nie Tian was a 7th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist, but he had just woken up. His strength had not recovered at all, but he was still so terrifying, truly horrifying. One had to know, Lung Liang was a 6th-level heavenly emperor martial artist too. In front of Nie Tian, he could only be slaughtered at will. Elder Peng, you guys saved me just now. Now I'll save you guys. This way, we're considered even, Nie Tian said to Elder Peng with a faint smile. Young Master Nie, Elder Peng gulped down a mouthful of saliva, seemingly wanting to say something, but he swallowed it back down. Elder Peng, feel free to say whatever you have to say. Nie Tian smiled faintly with a calm look. But Elder Peng heaved a sigh and said, Young Master Nie, you were too rash in making a move. You don't know this, but not only is the Lung family one of the Horizon border city's 4 great families, the Lung family's family head, Lung Ichio, is also the Horizon Purgatory's commander. Horizon Purgatory. Hearing these 4 words, Nie Tian's gaze involuntarily quivered and actually revealed immense joy. Young Master Nie, you might not know, but Horizon Purgatory is a place to imprison important prisoners. At a very terrifying place. In the rumors, people who enter Horizon Purgatory, not one can come out alive. Elder Peng thought that Nie Tian did not know what place Horizon Training City was and could not help explaining, the worry on his face growing even more. The Lung family's family head was the commander of Horizon Purgatory. That was an organization directly under Great Emperor Dawn Knight. It was no trifling matter. Chapter 1292. Elder Peng said that the head of the Lung family was the commander of the Sky's Edge Purgatory. Nie Tian wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he was very excited. He was about to go to the Sky's Edge Purgatory. If he could find the head of the Lung family, he could know about the situation there. You want to go to the Lung family? Elder Peng was surprised when he heard Nie Tian's words. Nie Tian had killed people from the Lung family. If he went to the Lung family, wouldn't he be sending himself to their door? Elder Peng admitted that Nie Tian was strong, but no matter how strong he was, he couldn't be stronger than a big family. The Lung family was one of the 4 big families in the Sky's Edge Purgatory. Its strength was comparable to a first-rate force in the Day-Night God Realm. It was impossible for Nie Tian to fight against the Lung family alone. Elder Peng was wrong. Nie Tian didn't want to fight against the Lung family, but the Sky's Edge Purgatory and the Day-Night Emperor behind it. And Nie Tian nodded slightly and said, Elder Peng, since the Lung family treated you so well, why don't you go back with them and ask for an explanation? Elder Peng was surprised. It seemed that Nie Tian was very calm and didn't put the Lung family in his eyes at all. Elder Peng hated the Lung family. He had taught the young Master Lung Shuang for many years, but he was hunted down and almost died. How could he not hate the Lung family? However, his strength was limited. It was already a great fortune that he could escape with Peng Xiongfei. How could he dare to think about revenge? Elder Peng Xiongfei's Qilin arm is too eye-catching. If you take him away now, there will be countless people chasing you in the future. Everyone knows how precious the Qilin arm is. The young master of the Lung family will be jealous, and others will be even more jealous. Nie Tian knew what Elder Peng was thinking and said, I have a way to unseal the Qilin mark in the Qilin arm. As long as the Qilin mark is opened, Peng Xiongfei can control the Qilin arm freely and hide it easily. You can unseal the Qilin mark? Elder Peng was surprised when he heard Nie Tian's words. Peng Xiongfei's Qilin arm was innate. Elder Peng didn't know how to unseal the Qilin seal and was worried about it. When he heard that Nie Tian could remove the Qilin seal, he was naturally excited. Yes, Nie Tian nodded and said, however, I need some spiritual materials, so I must go to the world's edge city first. I hope you can come along. Well, Elder Peng couldn't help but worry. He looked at Nie Tian with a strange expression. Grandpa, let's go back with Brother Nie Tian. Sister is still in young Master Lung's hands. Big Brother Nie Tian is so powerful, he will definitely be able to save my sister. Peng Xiongfei raised his head and looked at Elder Peng. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He did not know that Peng Xiongfei had an elder sister. However, Peng Xiongfei didn't know that Elder Peng was worried about Nie Tian. Other people had their eyes on the Qilin arm, but didn't Nie Tian have the same idea? Peng Xiongfei's sister, Peng Fongfong, was still in Lung Shuang's hands. Of course, Elder Peng wanted to go back and save her. Elder Peng, if I coveted the Qilin arm, would the two of you still be standing here? Nie Tian saw through Elder Peng's worry and said in a cold tone, All right, I will go back with you. Elder Peng's eyes trembled violently. He finally made the decision to go back to the world's edge city with Nie Tian. Nie Tian nodded slightly. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something. With a thought, the 3 live stone appeared. After he came out of the demonic devouring abyss, he was a little emotional and forgot about Long Ao Yin and the others. What is this? When Elder Peng saw the 3 live stone appear out of nowhere, he immediately felt a terrifying aura and was shocked. Nie Tian smiled faintly and didn't say anything. Rushi, Ao Yin, Lin Ling, come out. Nie Tian sent a voice transmission with his divine sense. The 3 live stone emitted a red light, and 3 figures appeared. It was Mo Rushi and the others. Nie Tian. Mo Rushi came out of the 3 live stone and shouted emotionally when she saw Nie Tian. She threw herself into the latter's arms. She didn't know what happened in the 3 live stone and was constantly worried about Nie Tian. Now that she saw Nie Tian was fine, she was naturally excited. Big brother, we're out of the abyss? Long Ao Yin also exclaimed excitedly. Mo Rushi reacted at this moment. Her eyes were red, and she quickly wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. With so many people watching, she was a little embarrassed. Let's talk on the way. Nie Tian sighed. His gaze swept across Mo Rushi and the others. Fortunately, they were fine. Long Ao Yin saw that Nie Tian's expression was a little solemn. He couldn't help but cry out, Big brother, did something happen? Did Mo Juyo not come out? Nie Tian sighed softly. He didn't hide anything and simply explained what happened in the abyss. Mo Juyo blocked the Snow Emperors for you. How is that possible? Why did he do that? Did he find his conscience? Long Ao Yin was stunned. He didn't expect such a thing to happen. He didn't know the relationship between Nie Tian and Qi Wuxi Ocean. Nie Tian didn't say it either. Elder Peng and Peng Xiongfei looked at each other in a daze. They didn't know what Nie Tian and the others were talking about. Elder Peng was still in a daze. It was as if he was dreaming. Nie Tian conjured a huge blood-colored stone out of thin air, and a few people walked out of it. It was too magical. Nie Tian didn't say much. He just introduced Elder Peng and Peng Xiongfei. Elder Peng told them about his experience. Long Ao Yin and the others were furious. Nie Tian only knew that Peng Xiongfei's sister, Peng Fongfong, was still in the hands of the Lung family. Elder Peng didn't care about Peng Fongfong's life and directly left with Peng Xiongfei. But he couldn't do anything. The Lung family was too powerful. He couldn't afford to offend them. After a while, Nie Tian and the others walked out of the forest. A majestic ancient city appeared in front of them. It was the Sky Edge City. The Sky Edge City was one of the 3 main cities of the Day-Night Divine Realm. It stretched for thousands of miles. Young Master Nie, this is the Sky Edge City. Elder Peng pointed at the ancient city. Let's go in. Nie Tian nodded. He didn't hesitate and walked in. After entering the Sky Edge City, Nie Tian and the others didn't rush to the Lung family. They wanted to find a place to rest and recover their strength. Long Ao Yin and Lin Ling's injuries hadn't fully recovered. They urgently needed to recover. Elder Peng found a relatively remote inn for Nie Tian and the others to stay temporarily. Nie Tian came to his room and let out a long breath. His expression turned solemn. He didn't know if Qi Wuxi Ocean was alive or dead. It made him feel very guilty. Recalling Qi Wuxi Ocean's last words, Nie Tian's expression became incomparably grave. The Demon King asked me to find my mother and apologize on his behalf. What does that mean? Nie Tian thought back. He had a complicated expression. It seemed that Qi Wuxi Ocean felt guilty towards Nie Tian's mother, Qi Wu Yunxiu. That was why he said that to Nie Tian. I wonder if the Demon King is still alive. I still have a lot of things to ask him. Nie Tian sighed. He only knew who his mother was. He didn't know who his father was. When Qi Wuxi Ocean talked about his background, he seemed to be avoiding his father. It was strange. Thinking of this, Nietion's expression grew even more grim. Chapter 1293. In the room, Nietion's expression eased up slightly. He sat cross-legged and started to inspect his injuries. In the demonic, devouring abyss, he exchanged blows with the Snow Emperor twice and sustained significant injuries. Later on, in order to activate the Devil Blood Spirit sacrificial array, he expended large amounts of blood chi. Currently, his martial body state was still very weak. If Lung Liang and the rest knew that Niet Tian instantly killed them under such circumstances, who knew what they would think? Niet Tian did not waste any more time. His divine sense entered the chaotic origin coffin and started to recover his strength. As the 9 dragon veins in his body started to circulate slowly, the damaged meridians in Niet Tian's body started to recover slowly. After half a day, Niet Tian's eyes suddenly opened. His gaze recovered its sharpness. He stood up abruptly. His entire body's aura was vigorous to the extreme. The supreme dragon vein plus the power of the stars, coupled with the strange power of the chaotic origin coffin, allowed Niet Tian to completely recover within half a day. The time flow inside the chaotic origin coffin is 1/10 of the outside world. This greatly shortens my recovery time. Very good, Niet Tian muttered with a smile and a gratified look. At this time, he suddenly thought of something. His gaze involuntarily focused as he said in surprise, "The Lumen Fiendu and the rest said before that the God-Fiend essence embryo needs 900 years to reincarnate. But I only used 100 years. Could this be related to the origin star stone?" Thinking this way, Niet Tian's expression became somewhat strange. The reason why he could reincarnate was not the power of the origin star stone, but the power of the God-Fiend essence embryo. But the time used for his reincarnation was greatly shortened, from 900 years to 100 years. This might be due to the influence of the origin star stone. What the hell is the origin star stone? Niet Tian's brows furrowed, his expression uncertain. Up until now, he still did not know what the origin star stone was and what kind of power was the power of the stars. Currently, his strength was at the 7th level Heavenly Emperor. After experiencing several great battles, he faintly showed signs of breaking through to the 8th level Heavenly Emperor. However, the power of the stars in his body had only awakened 370 billion. He was still far from fully awakening 900 billion stars, not even half of it. The Shroud Heaven Totem, the Eye of the Starry Sky, the Hellfire Crucible, the ancient martial incantation of the Starry Sky. They're all heaven-defying items. Until the power of the stars is fully awakened, they can't unleash their full potential. However, I don't know what level of strength I need to reach in order to awaken the power of 900 billion stars. Niet Tian murmured as a sharp light flashed in his eyes. The more he thought about it, the more he realized how terrifying the origin star stones were. Starry Sky, ancient martial technique. I wonder if I can open it now? Niet Tian suddenly thought of the Starry Sky, ancient martial art, and could not help but feel slightly stunned. Immediately, his spiritual consciousness entered the Starry River domain. The Starry Sky, ancient martial technique had a total of 9 forms. However, currently, Niet Tian had only learned 4 forms. After the 5th form, he was actually unable to open it, which made him very puzzled. Niet Tian entered the Starry River domain's 4th level. The Starry Sky, ancient martial technique, was above the Starry River, flickering with dazzling starlight, releasing a mysterious aura. Niet Tian took a deep breath, his mind focused on the Starry Sky, ancient martial technique, and slowly moved. Rumble. In the next instant, the Starry Sky, ancient martial technique actually trembled abruptly. Following that, it opened. Endless starlight, runes poured out, incomparably resplendent. It's open. Niet Tian's eyes quivered. He did not expect that he actually opened the Starry Sky, ancient martial technique. He was incomparably delighted. Starry Sky, ancient martial technique. 3 taboo forms. Starfire incinerating the sea. Starflow devouring the heavens. Star Dream Mark. Immediately after, a vast and mighty voice sounded out. Tens of thousands of starlight runes gushed out of the Starry Sky, ancient martial technique. surging above the starry river. And Nyetian was slightly stunned, his eyes involuntarily trembling violently. He finally understood at this time why he could not open the starry sky, ancient martial technique previously. It turned out that the following three forms were the three taboo forms. They seemed to be combined together. At this time, endless starlight runes surged over and revolved around Nyetian's body. Nyetian sensed the starlight runes and understood tacitly. He raised both his palms, and the starlight runes slowly condensed and actually divided into three types of power. Above his palms, a madly surging vortex appeared on one side, and a violent and blazing fireball appeared on the other. The power of the stars had actually divided into two completely different types of power. It was extremely strange. Above Nyetian's forehead, there was also a vortex, but it was condensed by mental power. It was very strange, as if it was some kind of sealing power. It was extremely terrifying. Nyetian's heart trembled as he sensed the three types of power. The power of the stars was too magical. Not only could it suppress all kinds of power, but it could also be divided into different types of power. It could even form mental power. After a long time, Nyetian finally calmed down. With a thought, the vortex and fireball on his palms disappeared, but the mental vortex on his forehead was still there. This seems to be some kind of sealing power. Furthermore, it's a kind of mental seal. Nyetian sensed the mental vortex on his forehead and muttered, "Mental seal." He had seen it before. The seal on the three-legged profound cauldron previously was a mental seal. He broke the mental seal precisely before obtaining the holographic divine vestige. Currently, he sensed starry dream traces. It seemed like this mental power was not much weaker than the holographic divine vestige. Starfire incinerates the sea. Starflow devours the heavens. Starry dream traces. What a freakish taboo, three styles. After a moment, Nyetian became cold, the corners of his mouth curling up into a hint of smile. Grasping the starry sky taboo, three styles, his combat power increased once more. He even had the confidence to insta-kill ordinary 9th level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. Nyetian walked out of the starry sky domain, his eyes releasing a fierce light, his entire person appearing abnormally sharp. Strength recovered. It should be time to go out and take a stroll. The corners of Nyetian's mouth curled up slightly. Walking out of the room, he wanted to take a look around World's Edge Border City first. Next, he prepared to make a trip to the auction house or marketplace to buy some medicinal herbs. Unsealing the Qilin seal for Peng Xiongfei required some special medicinal herbs. He reckoned that he could only find it at the auction house. Nyetian left the room and did not say goodbye to the others. Long Aoyin and Lin Ling both needed a rest. Mo Rushi just undid the sage imprint not long ago and was also in urgent need of increasing her strength. After a moment, Nyetian's figure appeared on the streets of World's Edge City. He came to the border city's marketplace, wanting to try his luck. Perhaps he could find the medicinal herbs that he needed. As Nyetian walked, he looked around. "Old thing, you casually picked up a piece of scrap metal and said it's meteoric iron. Do you take your father to be a fool?" At this time, a ruthless voice suddenly sounded out, exploding in the crowd like a sudden clap of thunder. Nyetian followed the voice and looked over. The person who roared angrily was a boorish middle-aged man, currently rebuking an old man with white hair and beard. That old man looked ordinary and unremarkable, but his eyes were calm and indifferent. There was a faint smile on his face as he looked at that angry middle-aged man. This is the second master of the Lung family, Lung Yifeng. This old man is really unlucky to have offended him. The crowd looked at the middle-aged man with fear in their eyes and laughed. Someone from the Lung family? Nyetian was taken aback for a moment. Then he walked over, but his eyes were fixed on that white-haired old man. Looking at the white-haired old man, Nyetian could not help but smile. "Old man Tiangong, I just happen to have something to talk to you about. I didn't expect to meet you here. What an unexpected harvest." The old man in front of him was very familiar to Nyetian. He was the #1 blacksmith in the Heaven Realm, Tiangong. In his previous life, Nie Tian's absolute heaven slash was forged by Tiangong. Tiangong's status was very high. The president of the Blacksmith Guild, by Mingbo, was his disciple. Chapter 1294. This old fellow actually ended up setting up a stall. He's really getting worse and worse. Nie Tian looked at Tiangong and laughed in his heart. Of course, he knew that Tiangong probably had other motives for appearing here, but he still ridiculed him in his heart. Nie Tian's sword absolute heaven slash's level was too low, only tier 7. It already could not withstand the impact of his sword intent. At this time, as long as he used a full power move, sword absolute heaven slash would definitely collapse. Martial artists whose strength reached the peak generally used tier 9 Emperor artifacts. It was not because tier 9 Emperor artifacts were powerful, but because tier 9 Emperor artifacts could withstand stronger impacts. Nie Tian had already chosen his sword billets and was just about to find time to visit the Artificers Association to find Tiangong. He did not expect to actually encounter the other party here. Now, it seemed like Tiangong was in some trouble. At this moment, everyone's gazes were focused on the Lung family's second master, Lung Yifeng and Tiangong. Their eyes were burning, waiting to watch a good show. Second Master Lung, what you bought from I was indeed meteoric iron, but what you're holding in your hand now is a piece of scrap iron. Tiangong looked at Lung Yifeng and said unhurriedly, "Old thing." Lung Yifeng's gaze turned dark, and he roared, "What do you mean by that? Could it be that my dignified Lung family's member would covet a piece of meteoric iron from you?" After Lung Yifeng finished talking, his entire body's aura rose. The surrounding crowd could not help but retreat repeatedly. What a terrifying aura! The crowd's hearts sank, their gazes trembling slightly. Lung Yifeng was the second master of the Lung family, one of world's edge city's 4 major families. He was known as the Lung family's second strongest person. His strength was second only to family head Lung Yiqiu, and he had already reached 8th level Heavenly Emperor. If Lung Yifeng lied for a piece of meteoric iron, it was indeed somewhat far-fetched. Meteoric iron was merely a tier 7 spirit material. Its value was not great. It was unknown that someone of Lung Yifeng's status would lie. Second Lung, what you want to covet is not the meteoric iron, but the things on I's stall. Tiangong chuckled with a calm look. He was an old monster who had lived for 800 or 900 years. He had seen countless people in his lifetime. What kind of people had he not seen before? When Lung Yifeng raised his butt, he could even tell whether the shit out was round or flat. Lung Yifeng naturally wouldn't bat an eye at a mere piece of meteoric iron. However, the other items on display were priceless, enough to tempt Lung Yifeng. Lung Yifeng's gaze shook violently, and a wisp of murderous coldness flashed through his eyes. It was obvious that Tiangong had guessed his thoughts. What he wanted wasn't the meteoric iron, but everything else on the ground. This was the market of the Lung clan. If Tiangong was selling shoddy goods, as a member of the Lung clan, it was reasonable for him to confiscate all the items of the latter. I was right. Do you want to kill someone? Tiangong chuckled without a hint of nervousness. He delved into the Tao of artifact, refining, and did not focus on a martial Tao. Hence, his current strength had just reached the 1st level Heavenly Emperor. Given Tiangong's strength, it was impossible for him to take on Lung Yifeng. Yet Tian stood where he was and watched, but he was not in a hurry. When someone of Tiangong's status went out, how could he not have an expert protecting him? As long as Lung Yifeng dared to act recklessly, the consequences would be unbearable. Old thing, you're courting death. Lung Yifeng's face suddenly fell. Following that, he roared angrily, releasing all the killing intent in his body, turning into surging pressure, enveloping over toward Tiangong. With his strength, he did not need to make a move at all. He just had to use his aura to oppress, and he could directly exterminate Tiangong. Facing Lung Yifeng's pressure, a faint smile hung at the corners of Tiangong's mouth, his face indifferent. The Lung family's second master is going to kill someone. When the crowd saw this scene, they could not help crying out. Die! Lung Yifeng smiled coldly, revealing killing intent. Since his objective was exposed by Tiangong, he naturally would not show mercy either. Fool! Tiangong shook his head slightly, looking at Lung Yifeng like looking at a fool. Swoosh! Right at this moment, the void trembled slightly. Two streaks of strange black light tore through the air. Lung Yifeng's figure directly flew out backward, smashing into the crowd behind him. The crowd was suddenly stunned, their expressions becoming dazed, completely unaware of what happened. It was clearly Lung Yifeng who made a move to kill. Why would he fly out backward? At this time, Lung Yifeng stood up, dripping with blood all over his body. Both arms were actually broken. Who is it? Lung Yifeng's eyes were bloodshot and his expression was hideous. He was not too stupid and knew that there was a powerful cultivator hiding in the surroundings. He immediately became enraged and yelled, "Get lost!" The reply he received was an extremely low and deep voice that revealed a strand of murderous coldness, and it caused others to feel as if they'd fallen into an icy pit. Lung Yifeng's expression froze, and he was stunned on the spot, unable to react for a long time. The coldness was too terrifying, instantly plunging him into despair. The surrounding crowd also felt the terrifying coldness. Their faces were blank, unsure of where the coldness came from. Yet Tion's eyes narrowed slightly. The holographic divine rune enveloped the area, and he saw an eerie black figure in the void. "It's you." In the next moment, Tion immediately recognized the other party's identity. His eyes widened in astonishment as 4 words appeared in his mind. North Sea Sword Dominator. Tion felt that the 2 rays of black light just now were somewhat familiar. Now that he saw the silhouette, he confirmed the other party's identity. North Sea Sword Dominator, Ghost Scar. Ghost Scar, like Mo Qianjun and Jiu Qiansheng, was one of the top swordsmen in the Heaven Realm. In his previous life, Tion did not have much contact with Ghost Scar. This person rarely spoke and was extremely difficult to deal with. It had never occurred to Tion that Ghost Scar was the one who had been secretly protecting Tiangong. No wonder Tiangong was so fearless. With a powerful cultivator like Ghost Scar around, even if the 9 emperors provoked him, he would still be safe and sound. Since when did old man Tiangong get involved with Ghost Scar? Tion was puzzled, his face slightly trembling. It was definitely not a coincidence that Tiangong and Ghost Scar appeared here at the same time. The 2 must be here for something. That person told you to get lost. Why are you still standing here? Do you really want to die? Tiangong looked at Lung Yifeng, who was still in a daze, and chuckled. Lung Yifeng finally reacted. His face trembled and his mouth opened wide, but no words came out. He immediately turned around and left. "The show is over. Let's disperse." Tiangong laughed and said to the crowd, "All of you get lost." A low roar came from the void. Everyone's face trembled. They did not dare to stay for another second and left immediately. The crowd dispersed, but a figure stood there without moving. Instead, he looked at Tiangong with a smile on his face. "Tion, you really didn't die." Then, the void trembled slightly, and a figure in black appeared. His face was hidden in the black robe. Like an undefeatable abyss, one look at him would make one sink into it. "Ghost Scar, it really is you." Tion smiled faintly. It was not strange that Ghost Scar could recognize him. Tion. Tiangong's expression couldn't help but tremble. He was overjoyed and laughed. "I did not think that you would really be reborn." Tiangong had already heard some rumors, and had also asked Ghost Scar to confirm that Tion was still alive. Chapter 1295. In a remote restaurant in Tianya Border City, 3 figures were sitting in the most secluded area. These 3 were none other than Tion, Tiangong, and Ghost Scar. Such a simple little restaurant actually had 3 peak figures at the same time. This was definitely rare. "Speak, why are you here?" Tion did not stand on ceremony, directly asking. He could guess that Tiangong and Ghost Scar appearing here at the same time was definitely not a coincidence. "Old Ghost, you tell him I was kidnapped by you." Tiangong drank a mouthful of wine and smiled helplessly. "I found a demonic fire in Purgatory Mountain. I asked Lord Tiangong to help me fuse it. Ghost Scar's face was hidden in the black robe. The space around him seemed to be hidden in the darkness. It was extremely strange. Demonic fire? Nye Tian was slightly taken aback. He looked at Tiangong and immediately understood. It seemed like Tiangong was forced to come by Ghost Scar. To dare kidnap Tiangong. Perhaps only Ghost Scar would do such a thing. Nye Tian had heard of some of Ghost Scar's experiences. This person was once an assassin when he was young, but for some reason, after completing a mission, he returned to the assassin camp and killed all of his companions. Nye Tian did not know if these rumors were true or false, but these rumors made Ghost Scar even more mysterious and terrifying. However, in Nye Tian's view, Ghost Scar was not as abnormal as the rumors said, at least not a bloodthirsty person. Just like just now, if Ghost Scar was willing, 100 Lung Yifangs would die thoroughly. Nye Tian was very curious. Just what kind of demonic fire could make Ghost Scar care so much, even inviting Tiangong over? This is the demonic fire. At this time, Tiangong laughed, directly took out a demonic fire diagram, and slapped it on the table. The sixth demonic fire, Dusk Blade Heart Flame. When Nye Tian saw that demonic fire diagram, his eyes darkened, and he almost cried out. So the demonic fire Ghost Scar and Tiangong were looking for was the sixth demonic fire, Dusk Blade Heart Flame. In the rumors, Dusk Blade Heart Flame was the most murderous of all the demonic fires, and it was extremely berserk. According to the ancient records, Dusk Blade Heart Flame contained sword intent. In the past, Nye Tian didn't really believe these rumors, but after experiencing so much, he began to believe them. At this time, Nye Tian also understood why Ghost Scar had such a special liking for the Twilight Blade Heart Flame. He must have taken a fancy to the sword intent contained within the heart flame and wanted to fuse with the sword intent, seizing the opportunity to seek a greater breakthrough. Tiangong and Ghost Scar had come to Border City for Dusk Blade Heart Flame. As Flame, Ghost Scar had come to Ghost Scar. Nye Tian, the Twilight Blade's heart flame is a devilish flame that contains sword intent. It's extremely strange. You're also very interested in it, aren't you? Tiangong said with a meaningful smile. Ghost Gong Flame. Nye Tian said with a frown Ghost with frown Ghost. Nye Flame was discovered by Brother Flame. Gong Nye. Nye Tian then Ghost Tiangong, Gong Ghost I. With Ghost of Nye Ghost. And the Gong was with Ghost. Gong, with his he could not. With Ghost Gong time Ghost. Thank you. Ghost Scar nodded slightly and expressed his gratitude. With a smile, Nye Tian looked at Tiangong and said, Old man, since you're willing to come here, you must have gained a lot, right? With Tiangong's identity, Ghost Scar would not dare to kill him if he did not come. The two of them were on good terms. It seemed they had reached a deal. Tiangong drank a cup of wine, looked at Ghost Scar, and said, Someone will take care of I in his old age. Why not? Retirement? Nye Tian was taken aback. He didn't quite understand what she meant. Lord Tiangong helped me fuse with the demonic fire. I will protect him in the future. I will stay by his side until he dies. Ghost Scar said without any hesitation. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed. He did not expect it to be like this. It seemed that Tiangong did not lose out in this deal. Tiangong was already 800 or 900 years old. He could live for decades or even centuries, but Ghost Scar had to stay by his side. It was like he was in his old age. Ghost Scar was really ruthless to get the Twilight Blade Heart Flame. He could even agree to such conditions. If Nye Tian had to stay by someone's side for decades or centuries, he would not agree. Nye Tian, you came to the Horizon City to save your disciple, right? Tiangong laughed and suddenly said, Yes. Nye Tian nodded. The Horizon Purgatory is not strong, but I am afraid it will be difficult for you to save him. Tiangong sighed and said, What do you mean? Nye Tian was stunned. Tiangong's eyes flashed, and he used his divine sense to scan the surroundings. After confirming that there was no one else, he said, Many mysterious people have appeared in the Horizon City recently. If I am not wrong, they should be the Snow Emperor's Snow God's Imperial Guards. I am afraid that the legendary Qian Chenyu has also arrived. Do you think you can save him from Qian Chenyu's clutches with your strength? Hearing Tiangong's words, Tian couldn't help but frown. He had seen Qianxunyu's strength. She was not weaker than the 9 Emperor's 5 peaks, definitely at the peak of the heaven realm. With Tian's current strength, he really could not fight Qianxunyu. Even if Tian's strength increased to the 8th level of Heavenly Emperor, he might not be Qianxunyu's match. Only by increasing his strength to the 9th level of Heavenly Emperor could he fight Qianxunyu. Tian became cold and could not help but grimace. He thought, with Snow Emperor's intelligence, how can he not know that I will come to the Horizon Purgatory to save someone? Tian escaped from the devil-devouring abyss. Snow Emperor must have expected that he would come to the Horizon Purgatory to save someone, so he had already sent the Snow God's Imperial Guards over. Snow Emperor is still one step ahead of me. Tian clenched his fists, anger flashing in his eyes. Tian, why don't you come with us to Purgatory Mountain first? Maybe there will be other discoveries. Tiangong's brows rose, and he laughed. Tian was slightly taken aback, and then smiled. What benefits do I get from going to Purgatory Mountain? The Twilight Blade Heart Flame was already reserved by Ghost Scar. Unless there were other demonic fires in Purgatory Mountain, Tian would just be watching the show. There was no meaning. Tian, you are not Qianxunyu's match right now, but Ghost Scar's strength should not be weaker than her. Come with us to Purgatory Mountain. I'll let Ghost Scar help you save someone. How about it? Tiangong smiled and said, Lord Tiangong, this. Ghost Scar was stunned. He did not expect Tiangong to say this. Yet Tian's gaze flickered. He felt strange. Why did Tiangong insist on him going to Purgatory Mountain? Was he worried about something? Or discovered something? Ghost Scar, you also know how terrifying the Twilight Blade Heart Flame is. I feel that with my strength alone, I do not have absolute confidence in helping you merge with the demonic fire. Tiangong looked at Ghost Scar and said, I feel that there is an enormous power in Tian's body. Perhaps it will be helpful in merging with the demonic fire. Ghost Scar was stunned, and his brows furrowed. He did not speak for a long time. I agree. After a while, Ghost Scar nodded slightly, agreeing to Tiangong's conditions. The Twilight Blade Heart Flame was too important to him, and he could not allow any mishaps. As long as he merged with the Twilight Blade Heart Flame, he might even break into the deity realm. Tian, what about you? Tiangong laughed and asked Tian. Chapter 1296. Tian weighed the pros and cons. With his current strength, it was almost impossible to save people from Horizon Purgatory. If he had Ghost Scar, he might have a chance. Since he could not go to Horizon Purgatory right now, he might as well go with Tiangong and Ghost Scar to Purgatory Mountain. He wanted to see how terrifying the legendary Twilight Blade Heart Flame was. What do you want to do? Tiangong stilled and asked in shock. Help me reforge Sword Absolute Heaven Slash. I will take care of the other things. Tian said and took out Sword Absolute Heaven Slash, placing it in front of Tiangong. Sword Absolute Heaven Slash, it is still in your hands. Tiangong stilled and was shocked. Sword Absolute Heaven Slash was the first of the 10 famed blades of Heaven Realm, the most perfect rank 9 Emperor weapon he had forged. In fact, after forging the Heaven Slash sword, he no longer forged any spiritual weapons. Now that Sword Absolute Heaven Slash appeared in front of him again, it was a damaged rank 7 spirit weapon. He could not accept this. Now that it is like this, I want you to reforge it. And yet Tian nodded and said heavily, Yes. Tiangong agreed without hesitation. Sword Absolute Heaven Slash has become like this. It needs to be reforged. I do not have a suitable one right now. I do. Yet Tian nodded and smiled. He had prepared everything. However, the sword he prepared was too big and could not be taken out here. After a while, Tian and the others left the restaurant and came to a remote place. This is my sword embryo. Tian took out the falling stars, which were hundreds of meters long, and floated in midair. What a strong sword intent. Ghost Scar could feel the sword intent contained within the body of the sword. He could not help but frown and exclaim in surprise. Lord Tiangong, are you satisfied with this sword? Tian smiled faintly. Falling Stars was chosen from tens of thousands of ancient giant swords. It matched the presence of sword absolute heaven / very well. Very good, very good. Heavenly Worker laughed in excitement and said, with such a sword billet, I will definitely be able to forge a Monarch weapon that is even sharper than sword absolute heaven / Nie Tian nodded and asked, Lord Tian Gong, how long will it take for you to recast the absolute heaven / Half moon, said Tian Gong after thinking for a moment. All right, Nie Tian nodded slightly. Half a month later, we will meet again here. At that time, we will head to Purgatory Mountain together. Deal. Tian Gong and Goskar looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Immediately, Nie Tian did not waste any more time and immediately bid farewell to Tian Gong and Goskar. After a while, Nie Tian's figure appeared in the Tianya border city's auction house. The Lung clan's auction house. Nie Tian stared at the sign in front of the auction house, and his lips curled into a cold smile. The main reason he came to the auction house was to purchase some medicinal ingredients to help Peng Xiongfei remove the Qilin seal. After entering the auction house, Nie Tian directly went to the VIP reception area. Young master, how can I help you? At this time, a clear voice sounded. A young lady in revealing clothes appeared. I want to purchase some medicinal ingredients. Nie Tian smiled faintly and turned around. When he saw the young lady in front of him, his brows immediately furrowed. The young lady in front of him was only 11 or 12 years old. Her small face was exquisite, and her facial features were exquisite. However, there were several bloody scars on her face, and her body was also covered in bruises. Young master, That young lady was a bit embarrassed. Her small face was extremely nervous, as if she was afraid that Nie Tian would be unhappy. Nie Tian's gaze trembled slightly. He looked at the young lady in front of him. Her face was a bit similar to Peng Xiongfei's, and he immediately understood something. He directly asked, You are Peng Fongfong? Young master, do you recognize me? Peng Fongfong stared blankly, extremely shocked. It really is her. Nie Tian's eyes flickered, anger surging in his heart. He knew that Peng Xiongfei had an elder sister in the Lung family, but he didn't expect that he would meet her here, especially under such circumstances. It seemed that Peng Fongfong had suffered a lot because Elder Peng had left her in the Lung family. The Lung family was really cruel to hurt a young girl in her teens. I am Peng Xiongfei's friend. Stay here and don't move. I will take you away after I buy the medicinal ingredients. Nie Tian forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart and said lightly. He originally planned to go to the Lung family to save Peng Fongfong after buying the medicinal ingredients. Now that he had met Peng Fongfong, of course he would take her away. Peng Fongfong was stunned on the spot. It seemed that she couldn't believe her ears. She couldn't help but burst into tears. Peng Fongfong, what are you doing? At this time, an angry voice sounded, and then a man with a handlebar mustache appeared. He walked straight to Peng Fongfong and scolded, Young master didn't ask you to come to the auction house to cry. Go and entertain the guests. Nie Tian's brows sank slightly, and he suddenly turned around, staring at the newcomer with a murderous gaze. You, what do you want to do? That person detected a chill coming from head-on, and his complexion could not help turning deathly pale. Get lost. Nie Tian's gaze was very gloomy. With a furious roar, that person was directly blasted flying by a powerful aura, smashing heavily onto the stone pillar above the hall. The entire hall trembled violently. Stinking brat, you're courting death. That person crawled up from the ground, his face badly mutilated. With a furious roar, several dozen black-clothed martial artists appeared above the hall. They were all fourth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists, their auras surging violently. When Peng Fongfong saw the situation, she subconsciously hid behind Nie Tian, panicking to the extreme. Get lost! Once more, Nie Tian roared angrily, releasing a vast and boundless sword momentum around him. Vast and mighty sword intent rolled out. Immediately, the entire hall wailed miserably. Several dozen black-clothed martial artists were actually unable to withstand the sword intense oppression, falling to the ground one after another, unable to crawl up again. What a terrifying person! When the others in the hall saw this scene, their eyes trembled violently, extremely horrified. Who could have thought that Nietian looked young, but his strength was actually so formidable? Bastard! Right at this time, a furious voice sounded out, roaring angrily. Who's behaving atrociously in the Lung family's auction house? The voice faded. A figure in azure appeared. It was actually a young man in his 20s. Amen. Nietian suddenly turned his head back and looked at that azure-clothed man. The latter's age was not old, but his strength was actually 5th level Heavenly Emperor. His martial Dao talent was very good. Young master, when that mustached man saw the azure-clothed man appear, he could not help crying out in pleasant surprise. The arrival was none other than precisely the Lung family's young master, Lung Xuang. It was precisely him who wanted to snatch Peng Xiongfei's Qilin arm. Nietian's gaze turned slightly dark. Elder Peng's strength was only 4th level Heavenly Emperor. He did not expect that this Lung family's young master's strength was actually 5th level Heavenly Emperor. No wonder he had no choice but to take teacher seriously. Young Master Lung Xuang. When Peng Fongfong saw Lung Xuang appear, she cried out in shock, her small face changing with a whoosh, becoming deathly pale as a sheet. The scars all over her body were all inflicted by Lung Xuang. She naturally feared the latter. Chapter 1297. Where did this lunatic come from, such gall, to actually dare behave atrociously in the Lung family's auction house? Don't want to live anymore. Lung Xuang felt the surging killing intent and was actually not afraid. Instead, he strode over in large strides and roared insolently. He knew that Nietian's strength was above his, but this place was the Lung family's auction house. Furthermore, it was World's Edge City. No matter how arrogant Nietian was, he also did not dare to kill him. Unfortunately, Lung Xuang thought completely wrong. Nietian's killing intent was not feigned, but genuine killing intent. Courting death. Nietian glanced at Peng Fongfong beside him, the killing intent in his eyes even thicker. Taking a step out, a streak of sword intent gushed out, blasting directly towards Lung Xuang. Don't hurt him. Right at this time, a majestic voice sounded out. Following that, a figure appeared. The person was still in the air and already smacked a palm out. Rumble. A majestic palm force descended, blocking the sword intent in the air. An intense explosion immediately sounded out in the air. Everyone trembled and retreated one after another. Father! Lung Xuang was frightened until his face was drained of blood. After a long time, he reacted. His forehead was already dripping with cold sweat, looking nervously at the middle-aged man who appeared beside him. He originally thought that Nietian did not dare to make a move. He did not expect that the latter was a complete lunatic to actually really attack him. If not for Lung Yiqiu appearing in time, he would already be a corpse. Lung family's family head. The crowd looked at the middle-aged man who suddenly appeared, their gazes trembling violently, and they cried out. The arrival was none other than precisely the Lung family's family head, Lung Yiqiu. Lung family's family head. Nietian's gaze tightened, looking at Lung Yiqiu, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. He did not care about Lung Yiqiu's Lung family head identity. What he was interested in was the latter's other identity, Horizon Purgatory's commander. Since Lung Yiqiu was the Horizon Purgatory's commander, one could tell how Horizon Purgatory's defensive capabilities were from him. 9th level Heavenly Emperor. Nietian's divine sense swept past Lung Yiqiu's body and immediately detected that the latter's strength was 9th level Heavenly Emperor. This did not surprise him. Although Lung Yiqiu had 9th level Heavenly Emperor strength, his aura was much weaker compared to Long Outyin, Lin Ling, and the rest. His combat power could not be mentioned in the same breath even more. Nietian guessed that Lung Yiqiu's battle prowess was at most on par with an ordinary snow god Imperial Guard. In front of Nietian, this kind of strength could only be considered as trash. One must know, Nietian had once killed 2 snow god Imperial Guards. Isn't the head of the Lung family from Horizon Purgatory? Why is he here? The crowd looked at Lung Ichio, their eyes trembling as they thought to themselves, "Who are you? What grudge do you have against the Long clan? Why are you causing trouble at our auction?" Lung Ichio stared at Nie Tian with fear in his eyes. From the clash, just now, Lung Ichio could tell that the silver-haired young man in front of him was extremely strange. He was definitely not an ordinary person. "What grudge?" Nie Tianling laughed and pointed at Peng Fong beside him and said, "Look at the scars on her body. This is the grudge between me and the Lung clan." Amen? Lung Ichio was slightly taken aback and cried out in surprise, "You're here to take revenge for Peng Shi?" "That's right." Nie Tian nodded his head solemnly. Then, he looked in another direction of the auction hall and said coldly, "Since you recognized me, why are you still hiding at the side? Stinking brat, you're so insolent." The next instant, a fierce figure appeared and landed beside Lung Ichio. A pair of cold eyes looked at Nie Tian and said with a sinister smile, "Stinking brat, I let you escape the last time at Devil Swallowing City. I didn't expect that you'd come to Horizon City. This time, you're dead for sure." "Is that so?" Nie Tian looked at the person in front of him, his expression dark as water, but the killing intent around him became even stronger. The person who appeared beside him at this moment was none other than precisely the deputy commander of the Snow God Imperial Guards, Yang Lai. Tian Gong was right. The Snow God Imperial Guards had indeed come to Horizon City. Yang Lai's appearance meant that Xian Xinyu was probably here as well. Yang Lai's strength was very strong, on par with Long Outyin and Lin Ling. The reason why Lung Ichio was here today was to accompany Yang Lai and take a look around. Neither of them had expected to meet Nie Tian here, even in their wildest dreams. "Official Yang, who is this?" Lung Ichio did not expect Yang Lai to know Nie Tian and could not help but ask. He knew Yang Lai's identity, so he was even more wary of Nie Tian. He was glad that he did not attack just now. Someone who could escape from Yang Lai's hands was definitely not an ordinary person. He's the one who trespassed into Devil Swallowing City. Yang Lai smiled coldly, his eyes filled with killing intent. Actually, until now, Yang Lai still did not know Nie Tian's true identity. He only knew that they came to Horizon City this time in order to wait for Nie Tian. Yang Lai heard that several days ago, the Snow Emperor personally came to the Devil Swallowing Abyss. He was very perplexed as to how Nie Tian could escape from the Snow Emperor's hands. It was too strange. When the Snow Emperor made a move, even peak Heavenly Emperor powerhouses did not have a chance to escape. Just how powerful was Nie Tian's strength to actually escape from the Snow Emperor's hands? This person is really daring to barge into Devil Swallowing City? Lung Ichio was stunned. Only now did he know that Nie Tian was far more terrifying than he imagined. "Stinking brat, you're dead for encountering me today." The corners of Yang Lai's mouth twitched coldly. His aura rose, and a terrifying, scorching aura immediately pervaded the surrounding space, making people feel suffocated. The crowd sensed something amiss and retreated out of the hall. Nie Tian took a look at Peng Fong, and the extreme Earth Dark Heaven battle armor appeared around his body, wrapping the latter up. With the protection of the extreme Earth Dark Heaven battle armor, as long as Peng Fong was not hit head-on, her life would not be in danger. Lung Ichio sensibly took a few steps back, his eyes trembling non-stop. He was very curious how Nie Tian was going to contend with a 9th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist with 7th-level Heavenly Emperor strength. "Stinking brat, you can't even protect yourself and still want to save people." Yang Lai smiled coldly. Taking a step out, he roared angrily, "Die!" Rumble. The moment the roar faded, a line of fire whizzed out, instantly spreading into a sea of fire on one side. Immediately, everything in the entire hall was instantly incinerated clean. Fiery snakes slithered out his hands and shot towards Nie Tian. In the blink of an eye, heaven and earth seemed to have turned into a furnace. So terrifying. When Lung Ichio saw the situation, he knew that the Lung family's auction venue could not be saved anymore. His figure moved, bringing Lung Shuang and leaving. If it was Lung Ichio with this kind of strength, he would definitely be tortured to death on the spot. Yet Tion's brows sank slightly. Reaching out his palm, a ball of fire appeared, burning frenziedly, extremely terrifying. Rumble. Yet Tion smacked a palm out. The fireball whizzed out, instantly exploding into a fire pillar, akin to a huge wave of flames, rolling out and crushing over frenziedly. This move was precisely one of the Starry Sky ancient martial arts forbidden 3 moves, Starfire Incinerating Sea. This was Nye Tion's first time using the Starry Sky taboo. He did not know how the power was. Just as he used Starfire Incinerating Sea, a berserk power actually erupted from within his body and actually drew all the blood energy in his body to surge endlessly. His entire body immediately emitted an intense pain of being torn apart. Chapter 1298. As soon as the Starry Sky taboo was used, Nye Tion suddenly felt his blood surging uncontrollably. His body trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Kaboom! At this moment, the flaming serpent and the flaming pillar collided. A loud explosion rang out, and a wave of fire soared into the sky, rushing toward the sky above the hall. The entire hall shook violently and immediately began to sway. Bang! Almost at the same time, Nye Tion felt a violent force assaulting him, catching him off guard. His body trembled, and he was actually sent flying. Fortunately, he reacted quickly enough. The meteor wings on his back spread out and formed a shield, stabilizing him in midair. Yang Lai frowned slightly when he saw this scene. He was very surprised. He didn't expect Nye Tion to be able to block his palm. But why would Nye Tion get injured for no reason? It was a bit strange. What's going on? Nye Tion's figure froze in the air, his eyebrows trembling violently. He also had a strange look on his face. But in the next moment, he suddenly understood something and said in his heart, "When I used the Starry Sky taboo, my blood surged uncontrollably. Do the 3 forbidden forms need to be activated with blood?" Nye Tion felt that the palm just now was too weak. It seemed to be even weaker than the Dark Star Ghost kill. It didn't deserve the name Starry Sky Taboo at all. Since it's the 3 forbidden forms, there should be some kind of backlash when using it. Otherwise, why would it be called a taboo? Nye Tion smiled faintly. He suddenly understood, and his eyes became cold. "Brat, you can take my first palm, but can you take the second?" Yang Lai saw that Nye Tion was smiling and felt insulted. He sneered, and the flame aura around his body became more intense. "You'll know after you try." Nye Tion smiled playfully. The mockery in his eyes became more intense. "You're courting death." Yang Lai roared and struck out with his palm again. The flames around him condensed instantly, and a 1,000-meter-long flaming dragon appeared in the air. It was extremely violent, and terrifying laws of heaven and earth surged around it, as if it wanted to burn everything into nothingness. Boom! At this time, the auction hall could no longer bear the enormous pressure and collapsed with a loud bang. Huge stone pillars fell down and created a huge wave of earth. Fortunately, most of the people had already left the auction house. Otherwise, it was unknown how many people would have died under such a collapse. Nye Tion's figure moved, directly lifting Peng Fong Fong up, sending her thousands of meters into the sky. He took a step forward and soared high up into the sky, standing there. Trying to escape? Yang Lai sneered. His figure flickered and confronted Nye Tion in the sky. Those two are so strong. Looking at the ruins of the Lung family's auction house, the crowd could not help but exclaim, their hearts trembling. "I don't need to run to deal with you." Nye Tion looked at Yang Lai and smiled faintly. Arrogant. Yang Lai was furious. His figure moved, and the flames around him bloomed. His figure turned into a 2,000-meter-long serpent. His whole body was burning with raging flames, as if the world was going to burn with him. Titan True Body. Seeing this, Nye Tion frowned. He did not expect Yang Lai to be so brave as to use the Titan True Body right away. Yang Lai was just one step away from reaching the peak of the martial artist realm. One could imagine how terrifying the Titan True Body was. The moment the fiery serpent appeared, A violent wave of heat spread across the surroundings. Feeling the heat wave, Nietion's eyes trembled slightly, and he could not help but take a few steps back. At that moment, the fiery serpent charged at Chun Fan in a frenzy. The power of heaven and earth changed instantly, causing the space to distort. The raging flames shot thousands of meters away, turning the entire sky into a sea of fire. This is terrifying. Lung Ichio witnessed this scene from the ground. Feeling the heat wave that was released from the sky, he could not help but feel pressured. If he were to encounter an expert like Yang Lai, he would not even be able to withstand a single attack. At that moment, Lung Ichio finally realized that he was no match for Nietion. Luckily, Yang Lai was here today. Otherwise, the Lung clan would be in big trouble. Up in the sky, facing the attack of the fiery serpent, Nietion's eyes flickered. A vortex appeared on his palm, and the blood chi in his body began to surge. This time, Nietion did not deliberately control his blood chi. Instead, he let his blood chi surge crazily. Traces of blood seeped out from his body as he emitted a bloody aura. His entire body was hidden in a blood veil. I knew it. Nietion was overjoyed when he felt the vortex on his palm suddenly become violent. It was absorbing the blood chi around him. That's right. The Starry Sky Taboo technique needed to ignite one's blood chi to unleash its true power. Starry Sky Devouring. Feeling the vortex on his palm becoming more and more violent, Nietion's lips twitched. He muttered under his breath and struck out with his palm. Kaboom! The Starry Sky Taboo technique roared out and instantly expanded into a vortex of about 10,000 meters in the air. It rolled out like a Milky Way, swallowing and sweeping everything. The fiery serpent in the void was extremely fast. It crashed into the Starry Sky Taboo technique. Its huge body kept rolling and struggling, tried to escape the confinement of the Starry Sky Taboo technique. Unfortunately, the more the fiery serpent struggled, the more violent the power of the vortex around it became. Seeing this, Nietion couldn't help but narrow his eyes in astonishment. He didn't expect that a small Starry Sky Taboo technique could trap Yang Lai's giant spirit real body. It was so weird. Water and fire are incompatible. The power of the vortex, evolved from the power of the stars, has an absolute suppression on Yang Lai's power of fire. The stronger his power of fire is, the stronger the confinement of the Starry Sky Taboo technique. Nietion murmured with a smile. However, the countercharge of the Starry Sky Taboo technique was very powerful. Nietion only used 2 moves, and his face was as pale as paper. The Starry Sky Taboo technique consumed more chi and blood than the forbidden 3 moves of the AO sword tactics. In fact, the Starry Sky Taboo technique showed such terrifying power in the hands of Nietion, not only because of the suppression of the power of the stars, but also because of his divine demon blood. The stronger the blood, the stronger the power of the Starry Sky Taboo technique. What's going on? When the crowd on the ground saw the scene in the sky, they all had looks of disbelief on their faces. They never expected that Yang Lai would be trapped by Nietion after activating his giant spirit true body. Chi, chi, chi. At this moment, there was a harsh sound in the air. Small vortexes suddenly gushed out of the Starry Sky Taboo technique and invaded the body of the fiery serpent. The huge body of the fiery serpent kept rolling, but it couldn't stop the vortexes from entering. And the more the serpent struggled, the faster the vortexes entered. Nietion's eyes trembled violently when he saw this. He immediately understood that the Starry Sky Taboo technique was going to devour the power of the fiery serpent. Boom! At this moment, Nietion felt that the power of his body began to skyrocket. Waves of violent power were devoured by the Starry Sky Taboo technique and integrated into his body. There was a mysterious connection between the Starry Sky Taboo technique and Nietion. It helped him to devour the power of the fiery serpent. Chapter 1299. Yang Lai used the giant spirit true body, but was trapped by the Starflow vortex. Inside the giant flame snake, one vortex after another continuously poured in, devouring the flame power within the giant snake's body. Nietian detected that the strength in his entire body was skyrocketing nonstop, the corners of his mouth revealing a surprised smile. The starry sky, taboo, starflow, devouring heaven was too terrifying to actually be able to devour Yang Lai's giant spirit true body. Chi chi chi. Ear-piercing sounds came out nonstop in the void. The power within the giant flame snake's body was being devoured nonstop. The massive body actually became smaller and smaller. Yang Lai wanted to recover from the giant spirit true body state at this time, but he was unable to do so, because his body was completely controlled by the starflow vortex. The more he struggled, the deeper he sank instead. What happened? When the crowd saw the tragic scene in the sky, their gazes started trembling one after another, the shock in their hearts indescribable. Who could have thought that the Yang Lai who used the giant spirit true body was actually controlled by Nie Tian with one move? What martial technique did Nie Tian use? It was too bizarre. High up in the sky, Nie Tian stood towering in the clouds, the aura around him rising nonstop, akin to a fiend god descending, his entire body's aura surging to the extreme. He was originally already peak 7th level heavenly emperor. Absorbing the giant flame snake's power at this time, the essence energy within his body was practically bursting, akin to a wild beast, clashing nonstop in his body. Nie Tian maintained his calm, sensing the opportunity to break through at any time. At a certain moment, he finally felt the 9 dragon veins in his body become restless. The corners of his mouth involuntarily twitched, revealing a smile. Rumble. The next instant, the aura that had been accumulating in his body for a long time finally erupted. Horrifying essence energy instantly spread out, spreading over a stretch of void. 8th level heavenly emperor. Feeling the increase in strength, Nie Tian was overjoyed and could not help crying out. While at this time, the body of the giant flame god inside the starflow vortex already shrunk from several thousand meters in size to several hundred meters in size. Starflow devouring heaven practically let Nie Tian devour the giant flame snake's power completely. Seriously horrifying. Rumble. At that moment, Nie Tian took a step forward and a terrifying sword aura rose from his body. In an instant, the power of the world was forcefully changed and the void trembled as if it was about to be torn apart. Nie Tian frowned, and then his pupils constricted as he exclaimed, "His sword principal realm has increased." He had never expected that the increase in his strength would allow his sword Dao realm to increase again, from intermediate sword ultimacy substitute to advanced sword ultimacy. That's great. Realizing this, Nie Tian couldn't help but laugh maniacally. His cultivation level had increased, and so had his sword Dao realm. His combat strength had instantly soared. Currently, Nie Tian's strength was definitely not below that of an expert like Long Outyin. In fact, he was even confident that he could fight against an apex expert. At this moment, the space vortex disappeared. The giant flaming snake rolled in the air and instantly turned into a human. How is this possible? Yang Lai felt that his strength had decreased by several levels. He was actually devoured. His face was full of surprise and shock. He couldn't believe it at all. When he looked at Nie Tian again, the latter's aura was obviously much stronger. Obviously, his strength had increased. What evil method did you cultivate? How could you devour my strength? Yang Lai's eyes trembled as he looked at Nie Tian. Even his voice was slightly trembling. Originally, he thought that this time, even if Nie Tian grew wings, he wouldn't be able to escape from the palm of his hand. He didn't expect this scene to happen. Whatever you say. Nie Tianling smiled coldly and stepped forward. His aura rose and a sword aura whizzed out. It was like a sharp blade, making an ear-piercing sound in the air. Yang Lai wanted to escape, but he found that his body was under a huge pressure. He couldn't move at all. Don't kill. A real aura of death assaulted him. The fear in Yang Lai's eyes intensified as he cried out. But the last word had yet to be said out when his entire figure was already drowned in the horrifying sword aura, directly exploding, turning into blood light and dissipating. Yang Lai, a powerhouse close to peak Heavenly Emperor, the deputy commander of the Snow God Imperial Guards, died just like that. Uff. Finally finished off this guy. Tian let out a long breath of turbid air, but his complexion was still deathly pale. The backlash power of the Starry Sky Taboo was too great. Even if his strength advanced, he still did not recover. The people on the ground looked at the bloody scene high up in the sky, their eyes all becoming dumbfounded. The scene was deathly silent, the atmosphere oppressive to the extreme. If not for seeing it with their own eyes, who could believe that a 9th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist close to peak actually died at the hands of a 7th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist? It was seriously too bizarre. The most terrifying thing was that Tian even devoured Yang Lai's strength and seized the opportunity to break through. The corners of Tian's mouth curled up into a hint of a cold smile. His figure moved, his entire body's aura akin to mountains and seas, descending with a loud bang, crushing over toward the ground. Rumble. Crack, crack, crack. Following his figure landing, the ground seemed to be crushed until it sunk several inches. The ground directly split open, revealing shocking fissures. Heavenly Emperor martial artists were already able to utilize the power of heaven and earth law, abnormally horrifying. Family head Lung. He's dead. It's your turn now. Tian's figure arrived in front of Lung Yiqiu and said coldly. Lung Yiqiu's complexion was deathly pale like paper, his forehead covered in bean-sized sweat beads. Seeing Tian kill Yang Lai with his own eyes, the shock in his heart had yet to fade. Compared to Yang Lai, he was simply trash. Even Yang Lai was not Tian's match. How could he be the latter's match? Why, Your Excellency? In an instant, Lung Yiqiu's teeth started chattering, both knees actually turning soft, directly kneeling on the ground, and said in a trembling voice, Our Lung family has no enmity with Your Excellency. Your Excellency, please show mercy and spare the Lung family. Spare? Tianling sneered, then glanced at Peng Fongfong in the sky, and said coldly, If it wasn't for me, would you have spared that little girl? This was how cruel the world was. Power was always the most important. Lung Yiqiu was dazed. His expression stiffened, and he didn't know what to say. Tian twitched the corner of his lips, and a gush of sword will burst out from his body. Before Lung Yiqiu could react, he died on the spot. Father! Lung Shuang, who was standing behind Lung Yiqiu, screamed when she saw this. However, she only managed to utter one word before she was crushed by a strong force. Her body exploded into a pile of meat. It was a bloody scene. Tian was not a soft-hearted man. He would never show mercy to the Lung family's father and son. From another perspective, if the Lung family's father and son were strong enough, they wouldn't have spared him either. The crowd looked at the bloody scene in front of them, then focused their attention on the silver-haired young man. Their eyes were filled with fear and trepidation. At this moment, two figures were watching this scene from afar. Their expressions were a little complicated. They were none other than Tian Gong and Go Scar. Go Scar, in your opinion, what do you think of Tian's current strength? Tian Gong smiled and asked. Very strong. Go Scar responded. If you fight him to the death, what do you think of your chances? Tian Gong frowned and asked again. I have 70% confidence that I can defeat him. Go Scar's eyes flashed under his black cloak. If it was an ordinary swordsman, Go Scar wouldn't have given such an answer. However, he didn't dare to underestimate Tian. Very strong indeed. Tian Gong chuckled and said, It seems that I have found you a good partner. According to Go Scar's estimation, Tian had 30% confidence that he could defeat Lung Yiqiu. Chapter 1300. After killing Yang Lai and the Lung family's father and son, Tian no longer delayed and left with Peng Fongfong. From beginning to end, Peng Fongfong's expression was stiff and her mind was blank. She didn't know when her brother had such a terrifying friend. After Tian left, he went to another auction house and bought some medicinal herbs before returning to the hotel. After handing Peng Fong Fong to old Peng, Niet Tian began to refine spirit pills. A day later, Niet Tian walked out of the room. Lord Niet Tian. Peng Shi saw Niet Tian walk out and shouted with excitement. He already knew what Niet Tian had done. Within a day, the news of Niet Tian killing Yang Lai and the Lung family's father and son had spread throughout Sky Edge City. Peng Shi didn't expect Niet Tian's strength to be so strong that he could even kill the Lung family's patriarch. However, he didn't know that Niet Tian had also killed a person far stronger than the Lung family's patriarch. At this time, Long Aoyan and Lin Ling were still recovering, and Mo Rushi was also cultivating hard. Niet Tian didn't want to disturb them and said to Peng Shi, "Old Peng, let's go to a secluded place." Next, Niet Tian was going to unseal the Qilin seal for Peng Xiongfei. It was estimated that it would cause a big commotion, so it was better to go to a secluded place. Yes, Peng Shi nodded heavily. At this time, Niet Tian was almost a godlike existence in his heart. To be able to meet Niet Tian, it was really a great fortune. A moment later, Niet Tian and the others appeared in a remote wilderness. "This is the place." Niet Tian spread out his divine sense and confirmed that there was no one around and nodded. "Okay." Peng Shi nodded heavily and let Peng Xiongfei walk over. His eyes were blazing. "Take this spirit pill." Niet Tian smiled faintly and handed a spirit pill to Peng Xiongfei. This spirit pill was just refined by Niet Tian. It contained various medicinal herbs that had a strong stimulation to the seal and could trigger the Qilin seal to be unsealed. Peng Xiongfei took the spirit pill and swallowed it without hesitation. "Sit cross-legged, concentrate, and feel the Qilin seal," Niet Tian said solemnly. Peng Xiongfei sat cross-legged, and a faint white mist rose from his small body. Peng Shi and Peng Fong Fong watched from the side. Their nerves were tense, afraid that something unexpected would happen. The moment he swallowed the pill, Peng Xiongfei felt a violent force appear in his body, constantly attacking his Qilin arm. This kind of power was too terrifying, as if it was going to tear his body apart. Peng Xiongfei wasn't very old, but his willpower was very strong. He endured the pain and didn't say a word. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and he had a pained expression, but he still focused his mind on the Qilin seal. Niet Tian smiled and said inwardly, "Not bad, not bad, not bad at all." He thought that Peng Xiongfei wouldn't be able to bear the pain of unsealing the Qilin seal. He didn't expect Peng Xiongfei to be so tough. After a while, Peng Xiongfei couldn't bear the pain anymore and screamed. Right at this moment, his right arm suddenly swelled up. In an instant, it tore through his clothes and became 5 to 6 meters long. His entire arm was covered with scales. It was dark and green, and a violent power surged on it. It was very strange. Seeing this, Peng Shi's face stiffened. He was so surprised that he couldn't speak. "The Qilin seal is unsealed." Niet Tian nodded. This kind of pain was terrible, even worse than when Qiushan unsealed the Azure Dragon seal. Boom! The next moment, Peng Xiongfei suddenly stretched out his right arm and punched. The shadow of a Qilin appeared and dashed forward. Walala! After the shadow of the Qilin rushed past, a deep pit that was hundreds of meters long appeared on the ground. The trees in front of it all collapsed. The Qilin arm is indeed terrifying, as expected of the head of the 4 great, profound arms. Seeing this scene, Niet Tian's eyes slightly trembled. Although this kind of destructive power was extremely limited, one must know that Peng Xiongfei's Qilin arm had only unsealed 1 Qilin seal. If all 12 Qilin seals were unsealed, the power would definitely be beyond imagination. After a while, Peng Xiongfei gradually calmed down. His arm returned to normal. When he stood up, there seemed to be a shadow of a Qilin around him. It was very powerful. "The Qilin seal is unsealed." Niet Tian smiled faintly. He sensed Peng Xiongfei's strength. It had actually reached the 9th level of the origin spirit realm. This strength was indeed very, very weak. But Peng Xiongfei was only 5 years old. If it was an ordinary person, they would probably still be at the stage of awakening their origin meridians. Lord Nietian. At this moment, Peng Shi walked over. His expression was slightly awkward. He laughed and said, I want Xiongfei to acknowledge you as his master. What do you think? Peng Shi understood at this moment. If Peng Xiongfei followed him, his future accomplishments would not be too high. But if he followed Nietian, it would be completely different. Nietian was too terrifying. If Peng Xiongfei could acknowledge him as his master, his future accomplishments would be limitless. Little fellow, are you willing? Nietian smiled faintly. Actually, he also had this intention in his heart. It was just that he was too embarrassed to say it. Now that Peng Shi took the initiative to suggest it, he asked Peng Xiongfei, Brat, hurry up and kowtow. How shrewd was Peng Shi? He immediately understood and roared at Peng Xiongfei. Peng Xiongfei was very quick-witted. His eyes flickered. He took a step forward and knelt in front of Nietian. He said in a loud voice, Master, please accept this disciple's kowtow. Okay. Nietian smiled faintly. He helped Peng Xiongfei up and said, From now on, you are my 14th personal disciple. 14th? Peng Shi was stunned. He did not expect that Nietian had already taken in so many disciples previously. In the following period of time, you'll follow by my side. Nietian smiled faintly, very satisfied with Peng Xiongfei. With the Qilin seal unsealed, Peng Xiongfei's strength would advance rapidly in the future. Barring no accidents, he might advance to the 5th level Heavenly Emperor and above before the age of 20. Following that, Nietian and the rest left and returned to the inn. My lord. At this time, Lin Ling walked out of the room. His injuries were not severe. He had already fully recovered at this time. Lin Ling, I have something for you to do, Nietian said directly when he saw Lin Ling. My lord, please speak, Lin Ling said respectfully. Lin Ling, make a trip to the Limitless Mountain with Elder Peng and the rest. Make arrangements for Elder Peng at the Limitless Mountain. Tell Lord Mo Qianjun to come to World's Edge City, Nietian said solemnly. World's Edge City was not safe, so Nietian prepared to let Elder Peng and the rest leave first and let Lin Ling escort them to the Limitless Mountain. Half a month later, Nietian would go to Purgatory Mountain with Heavenly Works and Ghost Scar. Then, they would go to World's Edge Purgatory to rescue people. But Nietian kept feeling that just Ghost Scar alone was still not safe. Hence, he decided to let Mo Qianjun make a trip. If Jiu Qiansheng and Mo Qianjun were together, the two of them coming together, that could not be better. Nietian decided in his heart that it was time to break off relations with the Snow Emperor. He was confident that with his current strength, even if compared to peak powerhouses, he was still lacking, but he was not far off. Chapter 1301. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days passed. In the room, Nietian stood up, his entire body's aura sharp like an unsheathed sword, sharp to the extreme. Half a month of bitter cultivation, his strength had already completely stabilized, even reaching peak 8th level Heavenly Emperor, faintly showing signs of breaking through to 9th level. Before long, my strength will be able to break through to 9th level Heavenly Emperor. At that time, it will be the time for me to take revenge. Nietian's eyes flickered, his gaze cold and murderous. He did not know if Chiwuxi Ocean was still alive. If he was alive, he must rescue him. If he died, he must take revenge. Snow Emperor, Luo Chunhun, your good days are coming to an end, Nietian said sinisterly in his heart, his expression revealing killing intent. Today is the day I arranged to meet with Tiangong. It's time to go find them. After a long time, Nietian calmed down and muttered. Next, he would follow Tiangong and Ghost Scar to make a trip to Purgatory Mountain. Big brother. When walking out of the room, Long Outyin's figure appeared. Seeing that Nietian seemed to be about to leave, he asked, Are we going to Horizon Purgatory? Now is not the time yet. Nietian smiled faintly and said, I have some things to do. You and Rushi stay here. Her sage imprint has just been removed. There is holy power in her body that needs to be refined and fused. When I'm not around, you have to protect her. Mo Rushi had already been cultivating hard in the room for half a month, but this was far from enough. Her sage physique had already awakened for a very long time, and her body contained tremendous holy power. But because of the sage imprint, this holy power had always been suppressed previously. Now that the imprint was removed, the holy power urgently needed to be fused. It would probably take a very long time. Nietian guessed that when Mo Rushi fused all of the holy power, her strength would have a huge increase, at least rising to 5th level Heavenly Emperor and above. Since the sage physique was known as the #1 martial physique throughout the ages, its potential was unimaginable. If not because of the sage imprint, Mo Rushi's strength was definitely not just the current 3rd level Heavenly Emperor. Big brother, don't worry, I will definitely protect sister-in-law. Long Outyin nodded heavily. Okay, Nietian said, I will be out for a few days at best, half a month at worst. You must be careful. After saying that, Nietian sensed Mo Rushi's aura, and after confirming that everything was normal, he did not stay and left. Moments later, Nietian appeared in a remote area of Heaven's Edge City, where he and Tiangong had agreed to meet. Upon seeing Tiangong and Ghost Scar from afar, Nietian landed and said with a faint smile, Sorry to keep you waiting, my lords. Nieva of, up, nya, comma, of Lord Ao Jian is indeed worthy of being the #1 person of Heaven Realm. Your strength has improved so fast. Guihen admires you. Guihen said indifferently, but was extremely sincere. Half a month ago, he felt that he had 70% chance of beating Nietian, but at present, he was only 60% confident. Nietian was too frightening. His strength improved so fast that it was shocking. Brother Guihen is too kind. Nietian smiled faintly, then looked at Tiangong and said, Lord Tiangong, where's my sword absolute heaven slash? It's done. Tiangong laughed, flipped his palm, and a cold, sharp sword appeared. Immediately, the Emperor's light soared into the sky. The light was extremely dazzling, rushing straight to the clouds. What a sharp aura! Nietian's divine sense moved, and his eyes could not help but tremble. The current sword absolute heaven slash, the Emperor's light, was very strong. It was even stronger than the sword absolute heaven slash that Nietian had seen for the first time in his previous life. Nietian, your sword billets are very good. I said that such a good sword billets will definitely be recast into an Emperor weapon that is even sharper than the original sword absolute heaven slash. Tiangong laughed and said, I have always been obsessed with the art of weapon refining. This sword is the most satisfying work of my life. Yet Tian smiled and took the sword absolute heaven slash. Suddenly, he felt the terrifying power of Emperor's light flowing into his body. With a thought, the sword will and the Emperor's light merged perfectly. Sword absolute heaven slash, my old friend, you will finally return to the peak. Nietian slashed out with his sword. A sword will rushed straight to the clouds. The brilliance of the sword bloomed in the space, as if it was cutting a gap between heaven and earth. When Ghost Scar saw the power of this casual slash, his heart inexplicably trembled. What a terrifying sword will. It seems that after Nietian's rebirth, his sword talent is even more terrifying than before. In his previous life, Nietian was already #1 on the heavenly sword ranking. Now, his strength was even more terrifying, truly making people feel apprehensive. At this moment, Ghost Scar even had a feeling that if he were to fight Nietian, it would be hard to say who would win. Let's go. Nietian put away the sword absolute heaven slash and smiled faintly. He gave Ghost Scar a look, but he felt strange. Just what was that black robe on Ghost Scar's body? Why was it so strange? His holographic divine runes actually could not see through Ghost Scar's true appearance. However, Nietian did not care too much. After all, everyone had their own secrets. Perhaps Ghost Scar's appearance was his greatest secret. The three of them did not waste any more words. Their figures moved like three shooting stars, shooting straight into the clouds. High up in the sky, the three of them were extremely fast, heading in the direction of Purgatory Mountain. Half an hour later, a continuous mountain range appeared beneath their feet. As far as the eye could see, what they saw was not lush and verdant, but an expanse of filthy darkness. Purgatory Mountain was extremely close to Purgatory World's edge. It suffered the roasting of soul-refining flames all year round, so the trees were all filthy black, appearing strange and sinister. This is Purgatory Mountain. Tiangong looked at the filthy black mountain range beneath his feet. He suddenly gave Ghostkar a look and said with a chuckle, "Ghostkar, if you merge with the Dusk Blade Heart Flame, what are your chances of advancing to the deity realm?" 1. Ghostkar stared blankly for a moment, then immediately said, Ghostkar merging with the Dusk Blade Heart Flame was obviously to advance to a higher realm. And for him, the deity realm was a higher realm. However, even if it was like this, after merging with the Dusk Blade Heart Flame, his chances of advancing to the deity realm were not high, only 1 in 10. I feel that if you give the Dusk Blade Heart Flame to Nye Tian, his chances will be far greater than yours. Tiangong chuckled, saying with a crafty expression, "I have no interest in the Dusk Blade Heart Flame." Nye Tian laughed bitterly. How could he not hear that Tiangong, this old man, was afraid that he would fight over the Dusk Blade Heart Flame, purposely saying this? "Many thanks." Ghostkar nodded heavily. He also knew that if Nye Tian merged with the Dusk Blade Heart Flame, his chances of breaking into the deity realm would indeed be greater than his. Nye Tian indeed did not have much interest in the Dusk Blade Heart Flame, because he believed that even without the Dusk Blade Heart Flame, with his demon god origin embryo, the supreme dragon vein, and the star origin stone, he could still easily break into the deity realm. He just needed a bit of time. All right, let's enter. Tiangong raised his eyebrows with a smile. The devil fire diagram appeared in his hand, preparing to enter Purgatory Mountain. Wait. Right at this time, Nye Tian instead frowned. Then, he reached out his hand to stop Tiangong and Ghostkar, saying in a low voice, "Someone is coming." Tiangong was stunned. Then his divine sense spread out, and his expression instantly became astonished. He said, "It's actually the Illusion Emperor. Why did he come?" Chapter 1302. When Nye Tian was about to enter Purgatory Mountain, he suddenly sensed that someone had arrived. With his divine sense, Nye Tian found out that it was one of the 9 emperors, Illusion Emperor Bailey Fengshan, and his disciple, Zhuo Qianchen. Nye Tian had seen Zhuo Qianchen before. In the ancient sword tomb, they almost killed each other. Nye Tian did not expect that Illusion Emperor and Zhuo Qianchen would also come here. Didn't Zhuo Qianchen obtain the 4th demonic fire, the first nightmare's demonic fire diagram? Shouldn't he be looking for the first nightmare? Why'd he come to Purgatory Mountain? Nye Tian suddenly thought of something and asked curiously. He remembered that Zhuo Qianchen made a deal with someone. Someone asked him to kill Nye Tian. Whether he succeeded or not, the person would give him the 4th demonic fire diagram. The 4th demonic fire had a powerful illusion power. It could devour a warrior's soul and divine sense. It was extremely terrifying. Zhuo Qianchen wanted to use the 4th demonic fire to break through to the 7th rank illusionist. Illusion Emperor is not easy to deal with. Don't tell me he also came for the demonic fire? Tiangong smiled bitterly. He seemed to be a little cautious. Let's avoid them. Ghostkar nodded. We can't avoid them. Nye Tian shook his head and smiled. Bailey Fengshan has found us. Bailey Fengshan was the strongest illusionist in the heaven domain. His perception was even stronger than Tiangong's. How could he not notice Nye Tian's group? Lord Tiangong, I did not expect you to come to Purgatory Mountain. I thought you had gone to enjoy your old age. At this moment, the void shook slightly. Illusion Emperor, who was tens of thousands of meters away, flickered and appeared next to Nye Tian's group. His movement skill was extremely strange. Half-step into the void realm. Nye Tian's eyes trembled when he saw this. Rumor had it that Bailey Fengshan had the half-step void skill, which could cut through the void and teleport. Nietian had never seen such a thing in his previous life. Now that he had seen it for himself, it was truly terrifying. With such a strange movement technique, the Illusion Emperor's strength was truly terrifying. Nietian raised his head slightly and looked at the person who had come. He was dressed in white and had an illusory halo around him. It was very strange and gave off an incomparably holy feeling. After over 100 years, Illusion Monarch's strength has improved again. It seems he will break through to Tier 8 Illusionist soon. Nietian's divine sense swept past the Illusion Emperor's body. The holographic divine inscriptions could sense an extremely terrifying power hidden within the Illusion Emperor's body. It was like a ferocious beast in hiding, accumulating power and preparing to attack. It was rumored in the Heaven Realm that if Bailey Fengshan could break through to the 8th rank, even the Snow Emperor would not be his match. Nietian didn't know if the rumors were true, but he could sense that the Illusion Emperor's aura wasn't inferior to the Snow Empress. Lord Illusion Emperor, you must be joking. Tiangong looked at Bailey Fengshan with a faint smile. Ghost Scar, I didn't expect you to be here too. Are you with Lord Tiangong? Bailey Fengshan nodded slightly, then raised his eyebrows and looked at Ghost Scar. We came to the Purgatory Mountain to look for something. Ghost Scar didn't hide anything and said directly, Don't tell me you are also looking for the demon fire? Bailey Fengshan was even more direct. He smiled faintly and asked, Ghost Scar was surprised, then he nodded his head. What a coincidence. We're also looking for the demon fire. The Illusion Emperor smiled faintly. Zhuo Qinshan's figure appeared beside him. It's you. Zhuo Qinshan saw Nietian at first glance and was extremely shocked. He said to Bailey Fengshan, Teacher, the person I told you about is him. Nietian. The Illusion Emperor's gaze fell on Nietian. He nodded with a smile and said with a strange expression, I heard that you have reincarnated. I didn't expect it to be true. Bailey Fengshan had already noticed Nietian's existence. He just didn't point it out. Lord Illusion Emperor, we meet again. Nietian smiled faintly. It wasn't strange that Bailey Fengshan could recognize him. Many people in the Heaven Realm knew that Nietian had reincarnated. It was very normal for Bailey Fengshan to hear some news. Teacher, do you know him? Zhuo Qinshan was stunned. He didn't expect Nietian and Bailey Fengshan to know each other. The Illusion Emperor smiled faintly and said, Qinshan, this person was the #1 in the Heaven Realm. He's my old friend. How could I not know him? This. Zhuo Qinshan's expression stiffened. He thought of something and said, Are you that Nietian? Zhuo Qinshan wasn't stupid. When he heard the title of the #1 in the Heaven Realm, he immediately understood. The Illusion Emperor nodded faintly and looked at Nietian. He seemed to be sensing his strength. He smiled faintly and said, Nietian, I already know about what happened in the Ancient Sword Tomb. I thank you on behalf of Qinshan. The Illusion Emperor already knew about what happened between Nietian and Zhuo Qinshan. It was all thanks to Nietian that Zhuo Qinshan was able to survive in the Ancient Sword Tomb. Lord Illusion Emperor, you are exaggerating. Nietian nodded and said with a smile, Zhuo Qinshan and I are just helping each other. Then, after exchanging some pleasantries, they finally entered the main topic. Lord Tiangong, which demonic fire are you looking for in the Purgatory Mountain? Bailey Fengshan asked directly. The 6th demonic fire, the Twilight Blade Flame. Tiangong smiled faintly and said, This demonic fire is very strange. I'm afraid Lord Illusion Emperor won't be interested in it, right? Fortunately, I am looking for the 4th demonic fire, the First Nightmare. The Illusion Emperor smiled faintly and heaved a sigh of relief. If he and Tiangong were looking for the same demonic fire, then it would be really awkward. Even if they were chatting and laughing right now, after a conflict, they might still fight. Bailey Fengshan was confident in his own strength, but Ghost Scar and Nietian were not easy to deal with. Once they started fighting, it would be hard to tell who would win. The 4th demonic fire? Nietian was stunned and said in surprise, Could it be that the 4th demonic fire is also in the Purgatory Mountain? The 4th demonic fire, the First Nightmare, and the 6th demonic fire, the twilight blade flame. Two demonic fires appearing in the Purgatory Mountain at the same time was too much of a coincidence. Yes, the Illusion Emperor nodded. A demonic fire diagram appeared in his hand, and he opened it. Nyetian and the others looked at it. The demonic fire diagram showed the location of the Purgatory Mountain, and it was in the deepest part of the Purgatory Mountain. Tiangong looked at the demonic fire diagram in front of him and was suddenly stunned. He let out a strange cry and said, "It can't be so coincidental, right?" Tian and the others were stunned when they saw Tiangong's reaction. Tiangong laughed inexplicably and then took out the demonic fire diagram of the sixth demonic fire, opening it in front of everyone. Everyone compared the two demonic fire diagrams and gasped at the same time. They were speechless for a long time. The two demonic fire diagrams actually showed the same location. The fourth and sixth demonic fires actually appeared in the same location of the Purgatory Mountain. This was too strange. After a long time, everyone calmed down, but their eyes still didn't leave the two demonic fire diagrams. The two flashes were very close to each other, and they almost overlapped. They were at most several hundred meters apart. Demonic fires were originally erratic things that scattered between heaven and earth. Right now, there were actually two demonic fires in the same location. This was a bit abnormal. Chapter 1303. Just when everyone was wondering why the two demonic flames appeared at the same place, Bailey Function's expression suddenly changed as if he had discovered something. Nyetian's eyes narrowed slightly. He extended his divine sense, and his expression also darkened. He was extremely shocked. Two more big shots have arrived. Tiangong immediately sensed something and cried out in surprise. Goskar and Zhuqianshan were both surprised. Their perception was not strong enough, so they did not sense anyone's arrival. "It's Dan Emperor and Jian Xia." Illusion Emperor frowned and said in a deep voice. Tiangong was right. Both of them were important figures. They were Dan Emperor Chen Xinwen and Jian Xia Dugu Ni. One of them was one of the 9 emperors, while the other was one of the 5 peaks. They were both peak figures in the heaven realm. It was not normal for them to suddenly appear here. Chen Xinwen and Dugu Ni. What are they doing here? Goskar asked in surprise. Even his voice changed slightly. So many important figures have come to this small Purgatory Mountain at the same time. Interesting. Nyetian's lips curled up slightly as he said in a playful tone. It seemed like something big was going to happen in Purgatory Mountain. Important figures came one after another. After a while, 2 figures appeared. One was a slightly chubby middle-aged man with a humble face. The other was a haggard swordsman. The two of them standing together was quite comical. Sure enough, it's Chen Xinwen and Dugu Ni. Upon seeing the two of them, Nyetian immediately recognized them, and an indescribable, cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. In his previous life, his impression of Chen Xinwen was quite good. The latter was the president of the Alchemist Guild, while he was an elder of the guild. But now, he felt that Chen Xinwen was a hypocrite. Chen Jini was also an elder of the Alchemist Guild. He was harmed so badly by Luo Chenhan, yet Chen Xinwen did not care about it. This was something that Nyetian could not accept. More importantly, Nyetian suspected that the person who asked Zhuqianshan to kill him was Chen Xinwen. However, he didn't recall any enmity between him and Chen Xinwen, unless Chen Xinwen was also with the Snow Empress. At this time, Nyetian specially observed Zhuqianshan's expression and found that when the latter saw Chen Xinwen, his expression was obviously different. With just this reaction, Nyetian was certain that the person who had sent Zhuqianshan to kill him was Chen Xinwen, Lord Illusion Emperor, Lord Heavenly Designer, Lord Sword Slaughterer. When Chen Xinwen arrived, he was surprised to see Bailey Fengshen and the others. Then, he smiled modestly and said, "It's so lively here. So many big shots have gathered. Are they all here for the demonic fire?" In the next moment, Dugani's figure arrived, and his evil eyes swept across the crowd. When Dugani's eyes saw Nyetian, he was obviously stunned for a moment. Then, he raised his eyebrows and laughed. The reincarnated Lord Ao, Jian, is also here. It's really lively now. The moment Dugu and I saw Nye Tian, he realized his identity and directly pointed out. He was very arrogant. Chun Xinwen was suddenly stunned. Then, he looked at Nye Tian and immediately confirmed the latter's identity. There was a trace of coldness in his eyes that flashed for a moment. Then he smiled and said, I really didn't expect that Elder Nye Tian was actually reborn. Compared to others, Chun Xinwen was more willing to call Nye Tian as Elder. This way, it would appear that his status as the Alchemist Association's chairman was higher than Nye Tian's. Lord Alchemy Emperor, Brother Dugu, long time no see. Nye Tian did not put on an act either. He directly took a step forward and greeted with a calm look. Since the other party already knew his identity, there was no need to be secretive. Sensing Chun Xinwen's coldness just now, Nye Tian was even more convinced of his guess. I didn't expect that Brother Nye returned to the Heaven Realm not long ago, and your strength advanced to the 8th level Heavenly Emperor so quickly. It seems like your combat power is already close to the peak of the Heaven Realm. I'm looking forward to it. Dugu and I smiled sinisterly and said rather playfully. Dugu and I remembered that when Nye Tian was competing in Sword Dao, his strength was still very weak and could not enter his discerning eyes at all. He did not expect that after a few months, he was actually close to the peak already. Truly terrifying. Brother Dugu is too kind. Nye Tian replied indifferently and did not avoid Dugu Nie's gaze. Then he said, Lord Alchemy Emperor and Brother Dugu appearing together in Purgatory Mountain. You also came for the Fiend Fire? Dugu and I already said, just now, they came for the Fiend Fire. Nye Tian was puzzled in his heart, not knowing which Fiend Fire Dugu and I came for. If a third Fiend Fire appeared in Purgatory Mountain, that would really be strange. I came to accompany Lord Alchemy Emperor. Dugu and I laughed, and then looked at Chun Xinwen. He really did not know which Fiend Fire Chun Xinwen came for. Chun Xinwen thought for a bit, but did not avoid it, and said coolly, I came for the 5th Fiend Fire, Space-Time, Doomsday. The 5th Fiend Fire. When Nye Tian and the rest heard Chun Xinwen's words, they were immediately stunned. A third Fiend Fire really appeared. And Chun Xinwen saw that everyone's reaction was not right, and could not help but become cautious. He said in astonishment, You also came for the 5th Fiend Fire? No. Tiangong and Bailey Fengchen shook their heads at the same time. It was precisely because it was not that they were so shocked. First it was the 6th Fiend Fire, then the 4th Fiend Fire, and now there was the 5th Fiend Fire. What was going on with these Fiend Fires? Why would they suddenly gather in Purgatory Mountain? Lord Alchemy Emperor, could you show us your Fiend Fire diagram? Tiangong took a step forward and said with a bit of nervousness. Chun Xinwen hesitated, but he still took it out and spread it out in front of everyone. Everyone came forward to take a look, and their expressions immediately froze. They could not say a word for a long time. The position of the 5th Fiend Fire diagram was actually exactly the same as the other two diagrams, almost at the same place. Everyone, what is wrong with you? Chun Xinwen saw everyone's reaction and could not help but frown, his face full of confusion. Tiangong and Bailey Fengchen did not speak, but took out their respective Fiend Fire diagrams and spread them out. When the 3 Fiend Fire diagrams were placed together, the contrast was even more obvious. The 3 Fiend Fires were at the same place, at most a few hundred meters apart. Chun Xinwen saw this scene and was also stunned, his entire body petrified. He was an alchemist, so of course he knew the Fiend Fires were strange. They had always been erratic. At this moment, 3 Fiend Fires appeared on Purgatory Mountain at the same place. This undoubtedly meant that there was something special in that place that attracted the Fiend Fires. He is looking for the 5th Fiend Fire, Space-Time Doomsday. This is a Fiend Fire that specializes in devouring space-time. At this moment, Nye Tian looked at Chun Xinwen with a slightly strange expression. He knew that Chun Xinwen was not only an alchemist, but also an extremely accomplished spirit formation master and an extremely rare space-time spirit formation master. Space-time doomsday was an extremely terrifying fiend fire that could devour all kinds of space-time, including space-time enchantments and space-time seals. Chun Xinwen obviously wanted to fuse with the space-time doomsday to raise his spirit formation master level. If he could fuse with the space-time doomsday, he would definitely be able to break the planar restriction of the Heaven Realm's God Realm and enter the upper realms under the condition that he did not break through to the Divine Realm. However, Nietian did not think too much about it. The most important thing now was still the present. Chapter 1304. Standing high up in the sky, Nietian and the others all had strange expressions on their faces. The fourth demonic fire, the first nightmare, the fifth demonic fire, the space-time apocalypse, the sixth demonic fire, the dust blade flame, these three demonic fires appeared at the same place in Purgatory Mountain. This was extremely unusual. Great Pill Emperor, I heard that you have many demonic fire diagrams. Why don't you take them out and see if the other demonic fires also appeared in Purgatory Mountain? Suddenly, Nietian thought of something and said to Chun Xinwen. Although he was already on guard against Chun Xinwen, the two sides did not completely fall out. They could still talk normally. Nietian vaguely felt that something big must have happened in Purgatory Mountain. Otherwise, there was no way so many demonic fires would gather together. Perhaps there were more than 3 demonic fires gathered in Purgatory Mountain. Chun Xinwen was the president of the Alchemist Guild. He loved to collect demonic fire diagrams, so he had quite a few. As long as he took them out, he would know. I do have many demonic fire diagrams, but I don't have them with me. Chun Xinwen shook his head with a smile. He could not help but look at Zhui Qianxin. The fourth demonic fire diagram in Illusion Emperor's Bailey Function's hands was obtained from him. Nietian's guess was right. The one who asked Zhui Qianxin to kill him was Chun Xinwen. There was no enmity between Nietian and Chun Xinwen, yet the latter wanted to kill him. It was definitely related to Snow Emperor or Luo Chenan. Everyone felt a bit awkward. Since Chun Xinwen did not have any other demonic fire diagrams, they could not see anything. They could only wait until they entered Purgatory Mountain and personally investigate. Since it is like this trip to Purgatory Mountain might not be so easy. Why don't we travel together? Tiangong laughed and suggested. All right. The Illusion Emperor did not have any objections and nodded in agreement. Dugu and I looked at Chun Xinwen. This time, he accompanied the latter, so he would naturally listen to the latter's arrangements. Personally, he was very willing to travel with others, especially Nietian. Perhaps the two of them could even exchange blows. Nietian, since the Azura's Gate Overlord can't kill you, I'll have to do it myself. I'm looking forward to seeing how much you've grown. Dugu and I glanced at Nietian as he spoke darkly in his heart. Of course, Nietian could sense Dugani's hostility, but he pretended not to see it and didn't care. Dugu and I was indeed very strong, but the current Nietian was not weak either, especially after his sword Absolute Heaven Slash recovered to its peak. He was confident that he could fight against an expert like Dugu and I. After giving the matter some thought, Chun Xinwen nodded in agreement. All right, since Lord Heavenly Designer has said so, how could this guild leader refuse his kind intentions? He also felt that entering Purgatory Mountain this time might not be that easy. Very good. Since no one has any objections, let's go in. Heavenly Designer laughed. He took a step forward and was the first to enter Purgatory Mountain. The others followed closely. Several figures retracted their auras and landed in the mountain range. The temporary lineup of Nietian and the others could be said to be abnormal. 2 of the 9 emperors, 3 of the 5 peaks, the number 1 weapon refiner, and the youngest rank 6 illusionist. It was truly terrifying. Right now, Nietian was a little puzzled. Bailey Fengshen was searching for the 4th demon fire. Was he going to fuse with it himself, or was he going to let Zhui Qianxin do it? Bailey Fengshen was a rank 7 illusionist, while Zhui Qianxin was a rank 6 illusionist. If either of them fused with the 4th demon fire, their illusionist rank would increase. However, if Bailey Fengshen became a rank 8 illusionist, perhaps even the Snow Empress would not be his opponent. Everyone entered Purgatory Mountain and immediately became vigilant. Nietian, Heavenly Designer, and Chun Xinwen's perception abilities were extremely powerful. When their divine senses spread out, they could see even the slightest movement within 100,000 meters. Purgatory Mountain is too close to Sky's Edge Purgatory, enduring the roasting of soul refinement flames all year round. Even the trees carry a strange fire attribute aura. Nietian looked at the surrounding giant black trees and said inwardly, the trees of Purgatory Mountain were all a dirty black color. Moreover, they carried a scorched smell that was extremely pungent. Han Fei, Zhang Jianqing, Master will definitely save you. Nietian vowed inwardly that he would definitely save his two disciples. The trees of Purgatory Mountain were already like this. Han Fei and Zhang Jianqing had to endure the roasting of soul refinement flames all year round. It was unknown what kind of state they would be in. No matter what, Nietian would definitely save the two of them. Everyone carefully walked forward. Even though they were powerful, they were still extremely cautious. Every single one of them had a premonition that something terrifying was currently happening in Purgatory Mountain. Everyone slowly approached the belly of Purgatory Mountain. The aura of the devil flames became stronger and stronger. The surrounding black trees were all like monsters, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, as if they were slowly becoming berserk. Everyone, be careful. The aura of the devil flames is becoming stronger and stronger. The surrounding aura is a bit off. Heavenly Designer's brows furrowed slightly. He couldn't help but retreat behind Ghost Scar and warn everyone. Bailey Fengshan indicated for Zhuo Qianshan to stand at the center of everyone. This type of position was relatively safer. Zhuo Qianshan and Heavenly Designer were the weakest of the seven. The other five were all at the peak of their strength. Chun Xinwen was a pill emperor. His strength was a bit inferior to the other peak experts, but his perception abilities were extremely powerful, so he wasn't that scared. Duguanai and Ghost Scar walked at the very front. Nietian and Bailey Fengshan were at the very back. Even though the seven of them each had their own ulterior motives, their teamwork was still extremely good. The further they went, the more intense the aura of the devil flames became for Nietian. That kind of blazing aura actually made it hard for him to breathe. Heavenly Designer and Zhuo Qianshan's expressions were a bit ugly, as if they were about to suffocate. Careful! At this time, Nietian suddenly felt a violent aura appear. He couldn't help but cry out. Something is coming. Heavenly Designer and Chun Xinwen also felt it and exclaimed at the same time. Qianshan, no matter what happens, stay behind me. Bailey Fengshan also felt something was wrong and said with a heavy voice. Among the seven, 5 were peak experts, yet they were so nervous at this time. If outsiders saw this, they would definitely be extremely shocked. It's coming. Nietian's divine sense spread out completely, activating the holographic divine glyph. A holographic projection appeared in his mind, and he actually saw a terrifying ball of flame madly rushing towards them. Come at me. Duguanai snickered, the corner of his mouth raised in a cold and austere manner. This person was ruthless and bloodthirsty. He didn't fear anything. Boom! The next moment, a crimson sea of fire appeared in front of them like a huge curtain of fire. Everywhere it passed, the trees and rocks were all turned into ashes. In an instant, ear-piercing screams came from the sea of fire. It was extremely terrifying, and it was extremely strange and mournful. Kill. Dugan, I didn't even look at it. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he spat out a word. His entire body was full of sword essence, and a chilling sword shadow whizzed out, rushing towards the sea of fire. Chapter 1305. Seeing the scene in front of them, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Everyone was clear about Dugun's strength. His full-powered strike was actually directly swallowed by the sea of fire in front of him. This was too strange. Right at this moment, the sea of fire spread over rapidly. The ear-piercing sound seemed to be right beside their ears, making them feel uneasy. It's the fire-winged bloodbats. Nietian was still considered calm. A beam of starlight flashed in his eyes, and he finally saw the true appearance of that sea of fire. It was actually formed by countless firewing bloodbats. Firewing bloodbats, one of the 10 great savage beasts of the heaven realm. The firewing bloodbats were even more terrifying than the earthen monitor lizard. Although they were only several meters in size, not even comparable to low-level spirit beasts, they would always appear in thousands. Moreover, their bodies were extremely tough, even stronger than ordinary 9th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. With so many firewing bloodbats gathered together, under the soaring aura, even a full-powered strike from a powerhouse like Dugu and I could not hurt them. Firewing bloodbats. Everyone was stunned, and their hearts trembled. Why would they appear here? Tiangong and Arrest had also come to Purgatory Mountain before, but they had never heard of firewing bloodbats appearing in Purgatory Mountain. They must have come together with the demonic fire. Yet Tian then said loudly, "Everyone, be careful. Don't let the firewing bloodbats break up the formation." Although the 7 of them were very strong, if they were broken up by the firewing bloodbats, even peak powerhouses would find it hard to resist. Everyone's hearts trembled, and they all became nervous. Nye Tian and the other 4 stood at the outermost, enveloping Zhuo Qianshen and Tiangong. The 5's aura rose at the same time, merging into a visible essence energy barrier. The combined aura of 5 peak powerhouses was enough to instantly kill other peak powerhouses. Be careful! At this time, the firewing bloodbats charged over. Nye Tian shouted, and the aura around him skyrocketed again. A terrifying sword aura bloomed. At this moment, Nye Tian could clearly see the appearance of the fiery winged vampire bat. Its body was 3 to 4 meters long, and its black, fleshy wings were burning with terrifying flames. There was a scarlet ball of fire in its throat, which was extremely frightening. Boom! In the next moment, the sea of fire formed by the flame-winged bloodbats charged over. Terrifying rumbling sounds rang out in the air as waves of fiery power smashed against the barrier formed by the 5 of them. Fortunately, Nye Tian and the other 4 were all at the peak realm. Even if they had to face the attack of the flame-winged bloodbats head-on, they could still withstand it. However, after these flaming vampire bats charged over, they had no intention of leaving. Instead, they surrounded Nye Tian and the others, spitting out waves of fire from their mouths as they attacked the Yuanqi barrier. Oh no! Nye Tian suddenly realized something and exclaimed, "The flaming vampire bats are targeting us. They won't leave until they kill us." He had thought that these flaming vampire bats would leave after charging over, but he did not expect them to surround them and attack them nonstop. These flaming blood bats seem to be under someone's control. They are very violent, and the Yuan-Chi barrier won't last much longer. We have to get rid of these blood bats. Bailey Fengshun could see that the flaming vampire bats' eyes were scarlet red, and they were in a berserk state. It was clear that they were being controlled. The Yuan-Chi barrier could still resist the attacks of the flaming vampire bats, but after a long time, Nye Tian and the others' Yuan-Chi would be exhausted, and they would die. What kind of person is so terrifying that he can control so many flaming vampire bats? Chen Xinwen roared angrily. He had clearly sensed that something was wrong. The first nightmare. Bailey Fengshun was stunned, and he blurted out a name. Even Bailey Fengshun himself could not control so many flaming vampire bats at the same time. If there was someone with such a powerful control ability, it would be the 4th Devil Fire, the first nightmare. The first nightmare could devour the consciousness and soul of martial artists, and it could also control martial artists. These flaming vampire bats were definitely under the first nightmare's control, which was why they were so violent. Those devil fires know that we are coming. Bailey Fengshun understood everything, and his voice trembled a bit. It seemed like the devil fires of Purgatory Mountain already knew that human martial artists were coming, so they sent the flaming vampire bats out first. Kill them all. Duga and I did not think too much. He let out a deep roar, and a terrifying sword aura was released from his body. It soared into the sky, and a sharp and austere aura spread out. Miserable screams immediately came from space. Even the flaming vampire bats could not resist Dugani's sword aura at such a close distance. When Ghost Scar saw this, a black heavy sword appeared in his hand. It was his Yuan's soul sword, Ghost Knight Rain. Boom! Ghost Scar swung his sword, and the Ghost Knight sword aura was like a blade of the night, violently rushing out. Under the black sword shadow, countless flaming vampire bats were directly smashed into pieces. Tian frowned, and the absolute heaven slash appeared in his hand. The power of Emperor Light fused with the terrifying sword aura, and it was released with a loud rumble. The soaring sword aura rushed out like a wild beast, tearing countless flaming vampire bats apart. Bailey Fengshen and Chun Xinwen also attacked at this time, each killing countless flaming vampire bats. The 5 of them were at the peak of their strength, so it was not too difficult to deal with these flaming vampire bats. However, if they killed all the flaming vampire bats, the 5 of them would most likely use up most of their Yuan energy. Their Yuan energy had already been used up before they even saw the demonic fire. This was not a good thing. Boom! At this time, a terrifying flame suddenly rose from the depths of Purgatory Mountain. It soared into the sky and condensed into a terrifying flaming ghost face in midair. It was extremely terrifying. Almost at the same time, the flaming vampire bats seemed to have been summoned. They actually directly gave up on Tian and the others, and flapped their wings, flying towards the flaming ghost face in the sky. In just a blink of an eye, all the flaming vampire bats disappeared like the wind, leaving behind countless flaming vampire bats' corpses on the ground. It was a bloody scene. What happened? The flaming vampire bats suddenly left, and everyone was confused. They did not know what happened. The first nightmare must have sent some kind of message to the flaming vampire bats, so they left. Bailey Fengshen frowned, his face full of shock. He had heard before that the first nightmare was extremely terrifying, able to evoke the greatest fear in one's heart. However, he did not expect the first nightmare's control ability to be so powerful. Lord Illusion Emperor is saying that the flaming ghost face in the sky is the first nightmare? Tian frowned. He calmed down and asked with a heavy voice. Yes. Bailey Fengshen nodded. He looked at the flaming ghost face in the sky and said, I can sense the first nightmare's aura. It is definitely true. This. Everyone looked at Bailey Fengshen, and all of them sucked in a breath of cold air. This trip to Purgatory Mountain was even more difficult than they had imagined. Just the first nightmare alone had already made them flustered. If other demonic fires appeared, what would the consequences be? The strangest thing was, why did so many demonic fires gather in Purgatory Mountain? Everyone, are we still going to continue forward? Seeing everyone's reaction, Heavenly Worker couldn't help but ask. Of course we are going to continue forward. Since we have already come here, how could we just leave like this? Dugu and I chuckled, his expression actually sinister. Chapter 1306. A cold smile hung on the corners of Dugani's mouth, but he said inwardly, the 6th demonic fire, Dusk Blade Heart Flame, is rumored to contain sword intent. If I obtain it, I will definitely be able to reach an even higher peak. Dugu and I was different from Tian. He never had any misgivings when doing things. He did not even put his own teacher, old man Tian Huang, in his eyes, and even framed Tian Huang Palace, so why would he be polite with Ghost Scar? He had to obtain the Dusk Blade Heart Flame. Ghost Scar and Tian Gong looked at each other. They already understood Dugani's meaning, but they could not expose it. No matter what, the 7 of them were still companions. As for when they would break up, it would depend on when the demonic fire appeared. I'm willing to go forward. Ghost Scar's eyes flickered under the black robe as he said indifferently. He was not afraid that Dugu and I wanted to snatch the Dusk Blade Heart Flame. Ghost Scar, was not a pushover. If he was forced into a corner, even if he had to fight to the death with Dugu and I, he would not hesitate. Dugu and I, Ghost Scar, if the 2 of you fight, who knows who will win? Tian glanced at Dugu and I and Ghost Scar, guessing the contest between the 2. He smiled inwardly. Dugu and I and Ghost Scar were both at the peak of the sword path. If the 2 of them fought to the death, it would be hard to say who would win. I also agreed to go forward. Chun Xinwen laughed and said indifferently, Nietion nodded in agreement. He did not come for the demonic fire, but the scene in front of him was too strange. He really wanted to see what was going on. Okay. Tian Gong faintly smiled and said, "Since everyone has agreed, then let us continue forward." Then, everyone rested for a bit, then continued to advance towards the depths of Purgatory Mountain. As they went deeper, the aura of the demonic fire became stronger and stronger. The air was filled with the aura of flames, as if the void was about to be ignited. As Nietion walked forward, he carefully scanned his surroundings with his senses. The flaming vampire bats were too terrifying. Fortunately, Nietion and the others were strong enough. Otherwise, they would have been reduced to ashes. A moment later, everyone noticed that the aura around them had become more and more strange, and they couldn't help but frown. The air was filled with an extremely mysterious aura. It was as if the environment had changed. The scenery in front of them became verdant and full of vitality. Something's wrong. Nietion's holographic divine runes were activated, but the image on the holographic projection was completely different from the scene in front of him. He couldn't help but exclaim, Almost at the same time, Bailey Fengshen also felt that something was wrong. He frowned and suddenly realized something. He said in surprise, "We've fallen into an illusory realm." Everyone was stunned, and their expressions turned sluggish. Bailey Fengshen was known as the Illusion Emperor. Even he had unknowingly fallen into an illusion. This was too terrifying. The first nightmare. Bailey Fengshen frowned, and his expression darkened. He knew that the first nightmare must have created this illusion. The first nightmare was too terrifying. It could actually create such a realistic illusion. Bailey Fengshen was already a rank 7 illusionist, but he couldn't create such a complicated illusion. Everyone, be careful. Hold your breath. Don't let the aura around you affect your mind. Don't absorb any energy. Bailey Fengshen calmed down a little and said in a deep voice, "The first nightmare could devour a cultivator's divine sense and original spirit. Right now, everyone was in an illusion. If they weren't careful, their minds would be devoured and they would become zombies." Everyone was shocked. They restrained their aura and held their breath. They didn't dare to be careless. At this time, everyone's eyes were focused on Bailey Fengshen. Nietion was no exception. Although Nietion could see that this was an illusion, he didn't know how to break it. Bailey Fengshen closed his eyes slightly, as if he was sensing something. Soon, beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and his face became slightly pale. A moment later, Bailey Fengshen opened his eyes. He looked even more frightened. He turned to look at Zhuo Qianshun and said in a deep voice, "Qianshun, release the nightmare devil mark." An illusion was actually an illusion array. Like all spiritual arrays, in order to break it, one must first find an illusion eye. Just now, Bailey Fengshen was trying to sense the illusion eye, but he couldn't find it. The illusion created by the first nightmare was too terrifying. The illusion I was hidden very deeply, and it was very difficult to find. The more it was like this, the more terrifying it was. Zhuo Qianshun nodded heavily. His face was also covered in sweat. He took a step forward. His body released a 7-colored light that bloomed in the void. At this time, he was using the nightmare devil mark in his body. It was an extremely terrifying illusion seal. Zhuo Qianshun's talent in illusion was so high because of the nightmare devil mark in his body. The nightmare devil mark was slowly released. The 7-colored light slowly enveloped the surroundings. The surrounding scenery slowly changed. It was actually a boundary between reality and illusion, giving people an extremely dreamy feeling. Bailey Fengshen couldn't sense the illusion eye. He could only use Zhuo Qianshun's nightmare devil mark. "It's there," Bailey Fengshen carefully sensed. At a certain moment, his eyes suddenly trembled. He locked onto a huge tree that was at least 1,000 meters tall and said in surprise. Everyone was startled. They immediately looked at the huge tree. It was verdant and lush, and its branches were luxuriant. It was constantly releasing an enormous life aura. This huge tree is indeed the illusion eye. Nietion's holographic divine rune locked onto the huge tree. On the holographic projection, waves of illusion power were released from the huge tree. Zhuqianshan's nightmare devil mark was indeed powerful. The illusion created by the first nightmare was also affected by the devil mark and revealed its true appearance. Lord Illusion Emperor, what do we do now? Chen Xinwen was slightly anxious. He looked at Bailey Fengchun and asked nervously, "Destroy this huge tree, and the illusion will break." Bailey Fengchun smiled faintly and said calmly, "All right." Duguin I smiled coldly. The long sword in his hand flickered with a cold light. It was his primordial soul, illusion 100 transformations. Without hesitation, Duguin I directly slashed out. The enormous sword intent condensed into a vast sword shadow, directly bombarding the huge tree in front of him. Bang! However, just as the sword shadow was about to bombard the huge tree, it seemed to have hit an invisible barrier. With a muffled sound, it directly shattered. Everyone was stunned. They were extremely astonished. With Dugani's strength, he could easily shatter a mountain with one sword strike. 1,000 meters tall tree was simply child's play to him. It's a space-time boundary. At this moment, Chen Xinwen suddenly realized something. His eyes suddenly darkened, and he shouted in surprise. Everyone was stunned. Their expressions instantly became complicated. Although the first nightmare could devour a martial artist's soul and primordial soul, it definitely did not have the ability to create a space-time boundary. Space-time doomsday. The next moment, everyone thought of something. Their eyes trembled violently, and they all exclaimed a name in unison. Space-time doomsday. It must be a space-time boundary formed by the space-time doomsday to protect the illusion eye. The first nightmare and the space-time doomsday. The two great demonic flames actually joined hands. The demonic flames and demonic flames joined hands. Chapter 1307. What's going on? Everyone heard a loud rumble coming from above the void above their heads and could not help raising their heads. They actually saw over a dozen enormous crimson-red sword shadows descend from the sky, landing with a loud bang, like enormous pillars, stabbing deeply into the ground. The enormous crimson-red sword shadows reflected a stretch of the sky, akin to a setting sun falling, beautiful purple and red, until it made people's hearts tremble. Everyone drew a cold breath in unison, their faces incomparably shocked. A name appeared in their minds, Duskblade Heartflame. That was right, it was the sixth fiend fire, Duskblade Heartflame. The first nightmare, space-time doomsday, Duskblade Heartflame. Three great fiend fires actually join hands, trapping Nietian and the rest in an illusionary realm plus sword formation. How is this possible? The scene that suddenly happened made everyone astonished to the extreme, crying out in shock. The fiend fires originally did not have much communication, and were even at odds with each other. How could they possibly join hands? This was too bizarre. Behind the fiend fires joining hands, there must be a very horrifying thing manipulating. Nietian was still considered calm as he said solemnly, but his expression was very ugly. Even he was also very nervous facing the current situation. The power contained within the fiend fires was indescribable. If someone was manipulating them from behind, that was really too terrifying. Just what in the world was it so powerful to actually be able to control the three great fiend fires and make them join hands? This is too bizarre. Heavenly Gong drew a cold breath, his complexion already ashen as white as paper. The powerful pressure released by the sword formation made him somewhat unable to withstand it. When Ghost Scar saw the situation, he released a surge of sword intent from within his body, turning into a protective shield, protecting Heavenly Gong. Bailey Fengshen also used similar means to protect Zhuqianshan. Duskblade Heartflame, the sixth fiend fire, a strange fire containing a powerful sword intent. The sword formation condensed from it was abnormally powerful. Even ordinary 9th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists would find it very hard to withstand such sword momentum pressure too. The first nightmare constructed an illusionary realm. Space-time doomsday protected the illusionary eye, dusk blade heart flame condensed into a sword formation. The cooperation between the three great fiend fires was seamless, simply perfect. What's going on here? Duguni's personality was ruthless. He roared in a low voice, his eyes quivering, revealing ice-cold, killing intent. Among the people present, the calmest were Nietian and Ghost Scar. Nietian had lived 2 lives and had experienced countless life and death situations. He was able to remain calm in the face of the strange, demonic flames. Perhaps because Ghost Scar used to be an assassin, he was very calm. His face was hidden under the black robe. He did not say a word or even make a sound. Nietian frowned slightly, and his expression became complicated. He knew that Duguni's violent temper might be related to the first nightmare. His mind was affected by the first nightmare. This can't go on. I must find a way to break through the sword formation and destroy the illusion. Nietian spoke in a low voice. The holographic divine imprint started to circulate, and a formless mental energy gushed out from the sword formation in the surroundings, wanting to find the core of the sword formation. The sword formation formed by the dusk blade heart flame was formed by 18 crimson sword shadows. The space was filled with a terrifying blood-red sword intent that seemed to be able to tear everything apart. Nietian circulated the holographic divine imprints and sensed the crimson sword shadows. At this moment, the 18 sword shadows suddenly revolved crazily. Waves of terrifying sword intent shot out, turning into crimson sword shadows that filled the sky, pouncing towards Nietian and the others. "Be careful!" Nietian screamed. His entire body released sword intent, and the sword absolute heaven slash let out a clanging sound, condensing into a sword shield, blocking the attack of the crimson sword shadows. The others also started to defend, preventing the sword shadows from approaching. However, at this time, the sword formation revolved faster and faster. More and more powerful sword shadows rushed over, covering the sky and covering the earth. It was like a crimson curtain rolling out. "Kill!" Dugu and I roared. The 100 demonic forms attacked, and a black sword shadow directly broke through the crimson curtain, bombarding the sword formation. Rumble! A huge explosion sounded out. The entire sword formation shook violently, and then it actually swallowed the black sword shadow. "Crap!" Nietian's expression turned grim when he saw this, and he said in a loud voice, "Don't attack the sword formation. This sword formation is capable of absorbing sword intent. If you're unable to break it, then it will only make it even stronger." Nietian discovered that after Duguni's sword slashed out, not only did the sword formation not weaken, it became stronger instead. Very clearly, the sword formation absorbed the power of Duguni's one sword and turned it into its own. When Dugu and I heard Nietian's reminder, his aura converged, and he no longer dared to attack casually. "Found it!" At this time, Nietian's eyes trembled slightly, flashing a hint of surprise. His eyes locked on one of the 18 sword shadows, and he exclaimed, "The Eye of the Formation is it!" Nietian's holographic divine glyphs detected that the Eye of the Sword Formation was one of the 18 sword shadows. This was the weakest point of the entire sword formation. If he wanted to break the sword formation, he must destroy the sword shadow of the formation Eye. At this time, the sword formation seemed to have a life of its own. It discovered something, and the 18 sword shadows quickly changed. The speed was extremely fast, dazzling people's eyes. "Oh no!" Nietian frowned. In just an instant, he actually lost the sword shadow of the formation Eye. The speed of the 18 sword shadows was too fast. It was obviously disrupting his perception. "Ghost Scar, cover me!" Nietian's face darkened. His figure moved, and he rushed out directly. He knew that in order to thoroughly find the sword shadow of the formation Eye, he must leave something on that sword shadow. Ghost Scar nodded, and his sword blasted out, turning into countless sword shadows that wrapped around Nietian. Nietian was in midair. Holographic divine glyphs surged out, like invisible tentacles, and quickly locked on to the sword shadow of the formation Eye. This time, Nietion's full attention was on the sword shadow of the formation eye. His body surged with the power of stars, and a spirit vortex appeared on his forehead. It was one of the 3 starry sky taboo techniques, Scar's Star Dream. Let's see where you can run to now. The corner of Nietion's mouth raised into a cold smile. A spirit vortex suddenly gushed out from his forehead and directly descended on the sword shadow of the formation eye. The sword shadow of the formation eye was wrapped by the spirit vortex, and it could not escape for a while. No matter how the 18 sword shadows changed, the sword shadow of the formation eye was still very obvious. Ghost Scar. The sword shadow that I marked is the sword formation eye. Destroy it. Nietion's figure moved, and under the attack of thousands of scarlet sword shadows, he appeared very agile. If he personally destroyed the sword formation eye, he could directly force out the Twilight Blade's heart flame. At that time, it would be the best time to fuse with the Twilight Blade's heart flame. However, Nietion did not do so, because he said that he would not fight with Ghost Scar for the Twilight Blade's heart flame. Ghost Scar immediately understood Nietion's meaning. His eyes that were hidden in the darkness trembled slightly. His figure moved, and Ghost Knight Rain attacked. The huge sword intent turned into a rain of sword shadows and bombarded the sword shadow of the formation eye. However, at this time, Dugani's voice suddenly sounded. His figure was not the slightest bit slower than Ghost Scar. The Void 100 transformation's sword stabbed towards the sword shadow of the formation eye, and a mighty sword shadow exploded out like a giant snake. Chapter 1308. Dugani's sudden attack caught Nietion off guard. His brows slightly furrowed. He wanted to help Ghost Scar, but his entire body was shrouded by endless scarlet sword images. If he forcefully attacked, it would definitely make the sword formation even more terrifying. When the others saw Ghost Scar and Dugu attacking at the same time, they all understood that the two were fighting for the Twilight Blade heart flame. Everyone's gazes became scorching hot. Looking at the 2 figures in the sky, they did not dare to blink, afraid of missing any scene. Boom! Crack! Ghost Scar and Dugu bombarded the sword images in the eye of the formation at practically the same time. Huge rumbling sounds overlapped together. The entire sword formation suddenly shook, followed by a crisp tearing sound. 2 cracks appeared on the sword intent in the eye of the formation, and it instantly collapsed. Boom! In the next moment, the sword formation violently shook. The 18 scarlet sword images immediately condensed together, converging into a scarlet red flame that burned in the air. It seemed like even the space was about to burn. Twilight Blade heart flame. When everyone saw this scene, they all knew that the main body of the Twilight Blade heart flame had appeared. Ghost Scar and Dugani's figures were still in the air. Both of them understood everything. Looking at each other, they immediately moved at the same time. Dugu I'll help you. Just at this moment, a fierce roar rang out. Chun Xinwen's feet leaned against him, and he slapped out with a palm. The terrifying palm force was like a mountain pressing towards Ghost Scar. It was very obvious that Chun Xinwen wanted to help Dugu snatch the Twilight Blade heart flame. If Ghost Scar wanted to compete, he would have to receive a direct palm from Chun Xinwen. Even if he did not die, he would definitely be seriously injured. But facing the Twilight Blade heart flame, how could Ghost Scar care so much? His figure was like a black light, directly rushing towards the Twilight Blade heart flame. Ghost Scar, you're courting death by snatching something from me. Dugu chuckled, his body releasing balls of black light. It was his 100 void chi. Dugu had the 100 void body, which could weaken everyone's strength. In order to compete for the Twilight Blade heart flame, he had already used all his methods. Really? Gui Hen smiled coldly. Immediately after, a pair of black wings appeared behind his back. The wings folded and formed a terrifying barrier, blocking the void chi outside. Don't even think about it. At this moment, another voice rang out. It was Nietion. His figure was as fast as lightning, and the meteor wings on his back fluttered. The Heaven/Sword Absolute/ released a dazzling sword radiance. Boom! A loud explosion sounded in the air as the sword shadow blocked Chen Xinwen's fatal attack. Nie Tian's body trembled slightly, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His strength was still slightly weaker than a peak powerhouse. If it wasn't a life-and-death battle, he would still be slightly weaker than Chen Xinwen. However, his actions were very timely. At the very least, he had blocked the fatal blow for Ghost Scar. At this moment, Ghost Scar and Dugu Ni simultaneously arrived beside the Twilight Blade's heart flame. Two sword images shot out, transforming into two sharp claws that enveloped the Twilight Blade's heart flame. The Twilight Blade's heart flame swayed violently in midair. Then, it actually retreated. Unfortunately, it was already too late. Two sharp claws condensed from sword intent landed with a loud bang, and actually forcefully tore apart the Twilight Blade's heart flame. Ghost Scar and Dugu Ni were too powerful. They actually tore apart the Twilight Blade's heart flame. Boom! Boom! The Twilight Blade's heart flame turned into two fireballs. Being attacked by the external sword intent, it immediately became berserk. Blood-red flames charged out and instantly spread into a sea of fire. Blood-colored sword intent wreaked havoc in the space. This is the time. Ghost Scar and Dugu Ni both understood when they saw the situation. This was the best time to fuse the Twilight Blade's heart flame. The two figures moved and actually poured into the crimson flames. Terrifying sword intent was released around their bodies, frenziedly absorbing the energy within the sea of fire. They're fusing with the demonic fire. Everyone was immediately stunned when they saw this scene and cried out in surprise. The outcome in front of them was something that no one had expected. Ghost Scar and Dugu Ni actually evenly split the Twilight Blade's heart flame. In just a blink of an eye, the two seas of fire burning in midair directly disappeared and poured into Ghost Scar's and Dugu Ni's bodies. Everything returned to tranquility, as if nothing had happened. Ghost Scar and Dugu Ni's figures stood in the air. Exchanging a glance, they each retreated. The two of them had just absorbed the Twilight Blade's energy. If they were to forcefully fight at this moment, it was extremely likely that the Twilight Blade's heart flame would fuse together again. That was a result that neither of them was willing to see. What the two of them needed to do now was to refine the Twilight Blade's heart flame's energy and turn it into their own. The Twilight Blade's heart flame was the sixth demonic fire. It contained a terrifying energy within. Wanting to completely refine, it would require a very long time. It was absolutely not something that could be done overnight. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Ghost Scar and Dugu Ni didn't make a move. Nie Tian looked at Ghost Scar and Dugu Ni as he thought to himself, the two of them have each obtained half of the Twilight Blade's heart flame. If they completely refine the demonic fire's energy after a few months, their abilities will definitely increase. I'm afraid that Mo Qianjun and Zhou Qiansheng won't be their match then. Ghost Scar and Dugu Ni could use the Twilight Blade's heart flame's energy. Even if they couldn't break through to the godly realm, they would still be able to reach the Snow Empress level and become demigods. When that happened, Mo Qianjun and Zhou Qiansheng wouldn't be their match. Nie Tian felt a little uncomfortable when he thought of this. If Mo Qianjun or Zhou Qiansheng were here, he would definitely let one of them fuse with the demonic fire instead of helping Ghost Scar. Thank you, Nie Tian. Ghost Scar landed beside Nie Tian and thanked him sincerely. If Nie Tian hadn't recognized the core of the sword formation, they wouldn't have been able to break the Twilight Blade sword formation, and they wouldn't have been able to fuse with the demonic fire. Furthermore, Nie Tian had the chance to fuse with the demonic fire, but he gave it up. This made Ghost Scar very confused. If Ghost Scar was in Hua Yuhao's shoes, he would definitely help even if he said he wouldn't fuse with the Twilight Blade's heart flame. Don't tell me he really doesn't care about the Twilight Blade's heart flame? Ghost Scar asked doubtfully as he looked at Nie Tian. Nie Tian didn't really care about the Twilight Blade's heart flame. He didn't think that the Twilight Blade's heart flame would improve his sword down much. The most important thing was that Nie Tian was a man of his word. How could he go back on his promise to Ghost Scar? Nie Tian. At this moment, Chen Xinwen looked at Nie Tian cold and spoke in a deep voice. Just now, it was all because of Nie Tian's obstruction. Otherwise, he would definitely have heavily injured Ghostkar and allowed Dugunai to take the Twilight Blade's heart flame for himself. Lord Dole Emperor, don't look at me with such hatred. Now isn't the time for us to shed all pretense of cordiality. Nie Tianling laughed and said directly. Chun Xinwen frowned, and his expression was extremely gloomy. Lord Dole Emperor, we are still in the illusion realm. It's better to work together. Bailey Function stood up and said indifferently. Ghostkar and Dugu and I would share the Twilight Blade's heart flame. This was the best ending. At the very least, it wouldn't cause the seven-man team to break up. Chun Xinwen nodded slightly and forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart. Everyone calmed down and looked at the giant tree in front of them. This was the illusory eye of the illusion array. In order to break the illusion realm, they had to destroy the illusory eye. Unfortunately, the illusory eye was protected by a space-time enchantment. How could they break this space-time enchantment?